Chapter 12:37. In the giant Spirit Mountain range, there were already thick layers of corpses of soul beasts lying around the lake. Faint yellow soul rings were slowly disappearing from the corpses of the soul beasts. Among them, there was no lack of mid-grade soul beasts that were close to 1,000 years old. In the end, there were only 2 giant soul beasts left in this area. One of them was the overlord of the lake. It was a ferocious, ice-blue poisonous snake. It had a single horn on its head. That was the dragon horn of a flood dragon. Snakes that were over 1,000 years old had already begun to transform into flood dragons. The one on top of its head was a golden eagle. Its wings were 3 meters long, and its teeth were extremely sharp. This eagle-type soul beast wasn't kind either. It was at least 1,000 years old. A wind-type skylark golden eagle and a water-type blue spirit flood dragon snake? On the hillside, the beautiful woman in white glanced at Wang Xian with her watery eyes. "What are you going to do next?" Wang Xian's gaze landed on the blue, cunning flood dragon snake that was hiding in the water from time to time, avoiding the sharp claws of the skylark golden eagle. Blue spirit snake, one of the low-grade water-type soul beasts. Its venom was extremely poisonous. Blue spirit flood dragon snake, one of the mid-grade soul beasts that evolved after the blue spirit snake's 1,000-year calamity. It further mutated into ice-type abilities and had the ability to spit out frost poison. It could also control water to a certain extent. One of the rare water-type soul beasts. Killing this soul beast had a high chance of obtaining the ability to control water, a certain chance of obtaining the enhancement of frost poison, and a certain chance of obtaining the enhancement of toughness. That's it. Wang Xian's eyes were shining. Xian this blue spirit flood dragon snake is at least 1,300 years old. Do you want to consider? Feng Yi saw Wang Xian's expression and was a little worried. A normal perfect human rank expert could only refine around 100-year soul ring at most. Refining around 1,300 soul rings from a powerful soul beast was too exaggerated. From what she knew, even some of the peerless geniuses of the ancient clans could only refine around 800-year soul rings. That was the limit. If he forcefully refined it, his martial soul wouldn't be able to withstand it and his body would collapse. Don't worry. My physique has been tempered many times, and my martial soul has also been tempered to a certain extent. Although it's a little difficult to refine more than 1,300 soul rings, the success rate is at least 80%. Wang Xian was very confident. A trace of redness flashed across the beautiful white-clothed woman's pure and holy face. What multiple strengthening! It was just drinking milk that contained the fire poison in her body multiple times. She was ashamed and angry, but Feng Yi pondered for a moment and felt that it wasn't impossible. The fire poison within her body could easily incinerate some weapons, but when it fell into Wang Xian's mouth, not only was it not damaged, but it was reduced to a body-tempering spiritual object. This was enough to show how strong Wang Xian's physique was. She had also checked that Wang Xian's physique was far superior to those of the same level. It was even comparable to the physique of some Xian-grade experts. If that's the case, get ready to kill the blue spirit Jiao snake. Alright. Seeing Feng Yi relent, Wang Xian's expression turned solemn. Flames flashed. It was as if a gigantic phoenix had appeared in the void as a terrifying temperature swept out. A terrifying aura that surpassed the Earth stage erupted. The 2,000-year soul beasts fighting in the middle of the lake instantly sensed it. Screech! There was a panicked eagle cry. Almost instantly, the virtuous firmament golden eagle couldn't care less about the blue spirit Jiao snake. It turned into a golden light and flew into the sky, running away without looking back. The blue spirit Jiao snake wasn't slow either. Feeling the aura from the hillside, it was like a frightened rabbit. Its ferocious and cold snake eyes flashed with fear. It curled its tail and dived into the water. Trying to run. Flames danced on her white clothes. Feng Yi didn't care about the escaping virtuous firmament golden eagle. Her gaze was fixed on the blue spirit Jiao snake in the lake. Flying phoenix claws. The scarlet flames turned into a fiery red phoenix claw and went straight into the lake. In the next moment, the water exploded and grabbed a strange ice-blue snake with black and white rings on its belly. Bang! A huge force penetrated and bombarded the ground. The originally ferocious blue spirit Jiao snake only had a tiny bit of life left. Feng Yi controlled her strength very well. The blue spirit Jiao snake was heavily injured and had lost its ability to resist, but it didn't die. Wang Xian went forward. For this kind of soul beast, he had the highest chance of condensing a soul ring if he killed it himself. His body was like a wisp of green smoke. He suddenly appeared 7 inches away from the blue spirit Jiao snake and stomped his foot down. Boom! The intense vibration went through the snake's flesh and into the gallbladder. With a boom, the gallbladder that had been burned by the phoenix primordial fire was shattered. The blue spirit Jiao snake had completely lost its life. A faint yellow light appeared above the blue spirit Jiao snake's body. It was different from the Blackwind tiger's soul ring. Not only was the blue spirit Jiao snake's soul ring brighter, but it also had a heavy pressure. It even had a faint golden color. Wang Xian's expression was calm. He walked over and sat down cross-legged. He stretched out one hand and activated the soul power in his body. Streaks of soul power flowed through his arm and gathered on it. Accompanied by a soft water-like pale blue soul power halo, the water spirit vine sprouted from his palm like a seedling. The 3 faint blue tender leaves had a rich life aura that fluctuated with his soul power. They seemed to have sensed the aura of the soul ring. The few faint blue tender leaves swayed. A layer of faint blue light appeared and guided the soul ring above the blue spirit Jiao snake towards the water spirit vine. It was the most crucial moment to condense the soul ring. Feng Yi looked at this scene with a serious expression. At the same time, she guarded the surroundings to prevent any soul beasts from interfering. As the Jiao snake soul ring approached, a huge pressure appeared. Wang Xian's heart turned cold. Under this huge pressure, his clothes were swaying violently. The tyrannical pressure pressed down on every inch of his body. Qin Feng's expression didn't change. Soon, the soul ring reached the top of the water spirit vine that was emitting a faint blue halo. It started to shrink and fall. Finally, it landed beside the water spirit vine. It was like a yellow bracelet that was shining brightly. Wang Xian's hand trembled slightly. The water spirit vine on his palm almost dissipated instantly. It was too hot. He felt as if his hand had reached into magma. The scalding magma was boiling his skin, flesh, and bones inch by inch. Wang Xian knew that he couldn't move now. If he couldn't hold on, all his previous efforts would be wasted. He gritted his teeth. The soul power in his body surged into the martial soul in his palm and stabilized this chaos inch by inch. At this time, there was only one thing he had to do, and that was to use his soul power to completely subdue this soul ring. This was the most difficult hurdle in the realm of a perfect stage powerhouse. Hold on! Feng Yi's pair of beautiful eyes stared at the buzzing and trembling soul ring around the water spirit vine. This was the most crucial moment. Whether he could subdue this 1,000-year soul ring depended on this moment. If the soul power was too little and the quality was too low, it would be easy to waste all his previous efforts. It was common knowledge that the older the soul ring, the higher the requirement for one's soul power. However, soon, her expression gradually relaxed. An icy blue soul power brilliance gushed out from Wang Xian's body and entered the soul ring. The scorching soul ring cooled down bit by bit and stabilized. No problem. In just a few moments, Wang Xian transferred so much soul power, but his expression didn't change. With such a vigorous soul power, no wonder Xian was so confident to subdue this 1,000-year Jiao snake soul ring. As Feng Yi's thoughts changed, the 1,000-year Jiao snake soul ring had completely stabilized. After the faint earthy yellow soul power ring stabilized, a layer of earthy yellow light poured down from the soul ring and entered the martial soul. A small part of it flowed down his arm and went straight into Wang Xian's body. At this moment, Wang Xian's entire body seemed to emit a rich earthy yellow luster. This was the soul ring strengthening. Feng Yi was completely relieved. I wonder which ability of the 1,000-year Jiao snake soul ring Xian will be able to obtain this time? The beautiful white-clothed young woman's clear eyes flashed with anticipation. Chapter 1238. The power of the soul ring was like boiling magma as it entered the water spirit vine. The magma-like power did not melt or destroy the vine that was as weak as a blade of grass. On the contrary, after absorbing the power of the soul ring, it was as if it had obtained nourishment. As it grew, its originally thin and weak roots became thick and strong, and there were even traces of light blue scales on them. They were like fine snake scales. They emitted a sapphire-blue brilliance. The oval-shaped leaves gradually changed into sawtooth-like icy blue leaves. The veins of the leaves were like venomous snake. Traces of cold venom flickered with a trace of black veins. The light blue brilliance gradually deepened, and the transformed vines grew larger and larger. It was like a small sapling that had grown into a Boston ivy. The leaves swayed like countless agile little snakes. Boom! Following that, the remaining power of the soul ring flowed like a torrent through the martial soul and into his four limbs. When the torrent of magma-like heat flowed through the soul ring into his martial soul and into his four limbs, Qin Feng felt that he had naturally broken through to the yellow rank. The colorless soul power in his body carried traces of a faint yellow light. That was the sign of reaching the yellow rank, although it was only the first layer of the yellow rank. However, the power of the soul ring was far from reaching its limit. The rolling power surged as the nameless soul scripture accelerated its operation and opened up layers of meridians in his body. Yellow rank second layer. Yellow rank third layer. The power of the 1,000-year soul ring directly pushed the soul power in his body to the third layer of the yellow rank. It really is a 1,000-year soul ring. It actually broke through to the third layer of the yellow rank in one go. Feng Yi's phoenix eyes lit up. This kind of cultivation speed was truly rare. However, in the next moment, her beautiful eyes widened. Rumble! A small soul power vortex gradually formed above the martial soul in Wang Xian's palm. The invisible vortex gradually expanded, and it began to pull in the soul power in the surrounding space to pour into the martial soul, which then entered Wang Xian's body. This, Feng Yi's beautiful eyes were filled with astonishment. According to what she knew, opening the aperture of heaven and earth and allowing the soul ring to absorb the abundant soul power in heaven and earth was an ability that could only be obtained after reaching the black rank. Furthermore, it could only devour a small portion of the abundant soul power in the void. But before his eyes, the drifting soul power within a radius of several hundred meters seemed to be forcibly pulled and devoured by the mutated water spirit vine. The remaining part of the soul power went into Wang Xian's body. Yellow rank level 4. Yellow rank level 5. Yellow rank level 6. Under Feng Yi's incredulous gaze, Wang Xian's soul power surged and directly charged into the peak of the yellow rank 9th layer Great Circle. If it wasn't for the fact that the second soul ring had yet to be obtained, Feng Yi didn't doubt that Wang Xian would directly break through the profound rank realm. He could sense that although Wang Xian's soul power was vast and majestic, it was not weak at all. Wang Xian opened his eyes and pondered in his heart as the aura of the complete yellow rank was condensed to the extreme. It's a pity that the second and third soul rings haven't been found yet. Otherwise, I could directly enter the peak of the profound rank and the peak of the earth rank. Wang Xian was a peerless almighty of the King realm. Although the laws of the Star River continent were somewhat different, he could use the Master God space to analyze and modify them. Layer by layer. This kind of cultivation speed was absolutely not something a so-called genius could compare to. The next step is to find the second soul ring. The limit for the second soul ring is 2,000 years for most people, but with my physical fitness and the strength of my soul, I can consider a soul ring below 5,000 years. Thinking in his heart, Wang Xian opened his eyes and glanced around. His brows furrowed. This terrifying action of his seemed to have frightened Feng Yi. "Xian, are you?" Feng Yi's pair of beautiful phoenix eyes were filled with doubt as she looked at Wang Xian with a complicated expression. "Don't worry, I have other opportunities." Wang Xian's expression was indifferent as he shook his head. He had already prepared a response to Feng Yi's reaction. As for making up stories, he had countless materials in his mind about the rise of geniuses. It really couldn't be any more real. "You're saying that you obtained a wonderful treasure that allows you to enter the dream to cultivate 1 day every month, and that 1 day in the dream is comparable to 10 years of other people?" Feng Yi was a little stunned and a little enlightened. Although she didn't know whether this was true or not, it seemed that this was the only explanation that could fit Wang Xian's monstrous explanation. A 6-year-old child's talent might be monstrous, but his temperament shouldn't be so terrifying. Wang Xian nodded and moved his sleeve aside. A strange symbol appeared on his arm. That was a symbol that he could sense more of the Master God Space's power after his cultivation breakthrough. He borrowed a trace of the Master God Space's power to brand it. Feng Yi was still in disbelief. She couldn't help but step forward and use a trace of soul remembrance to pierce it. However, in the next moment, she felt an indescribable majestic power. In a trance, she seemed to see an extremely imposing figure. It was a terrifying almighty that swam across the heavens. It seemed that a trace of his aura could suppress space and time. So terrifying! Feng Yi's soul awareness was instantly ejected, but that terrifying almighty's imposing figure seemed to have entered the depths of her soul. After a long time, she finally reacted from the terrifying aura fluctuation. She turned around and looked at Wang Xian. Her beautiful eyes couldn't hide the joy in them. Having obtained the inheritance of such a terrifying existence, Wang Xian's future was limitless. "Xian, you didn't do this properly. How could you easily reveal such an inheritance? If it were to spread, it would be a great disaster. Remember, you can't speak of it in the future. You can't speak of it to anyone. You're not an outsider." Wang Xian shook his head slightly. Feng Yi was stunned. Then, she looked at Wang Xian with her watery eyes. She was both touched and gratified. Moved, the white-clothed young woman couldn't help but tightly embrace the white-clothed young master. Wang Xian only felt an extremely pleasant body fragrance that was like orchids and musk entered his nose. There was also that soft and bouncy, extremely wonderful feeling. He couldn't help but move in that direction. This is a natural-born peerless beauty. No wonder Wang Xuani's life was so short. How could an ordinary person have the fortune to possess such a peerless beauty? Wang Xian laughed in his heart. He compared the other women in his heart. Even the Queen of Silvermoon, who was a peerless beauty, was slightly inferior to this young woman in white. The white-clothed young woman didn't feel the strangeness of the white-clothed young master in her arms. Her sacred and pure jade face was filled with gratitude. The warm atmosphere didn't disperse for a long time on the hillside. After a moment, the beautiful white-clothed young woman let go of the white-clothed young master in her arms and asked, "Xian, what are you going to do next? Are you going back to Giant Spirit City directly or continue hunting for the second soul ring in the Giant Spirit Mountain Range?" When she let go of the white-clothed young master, the beautiful white-clothed woman noticed that after the soul ring strengthening, Wang Xian had grown a lot taller. He actually looked like he was 11 or 12 years old. He looked like a teenager. Chapter 1239. That's right. Wang Xian nodded and said calmly, I've read in the notes of many Wang family disciples that there is a poison dragon pool in the depths of the giant spiritual mountain range. There is a 4,000-year-old three-headed poisonous serpent in the poison dragon pool. Three-headed poisonous serpent? This is a top-tier existence close to a high-level soul beast. Are you sure you want to choose it? Feng Yi was surprised. Wang Xian nodded. He had chosen to strengthen his water-type and poison-type soul beasts. This was the most suitable path for the mutated water spirit vine. Right now, the evolved water spirit vine should be the frost serpent poisonous serpent. Not only did it have the outstanding cold poison of the blue spirit serpent, but it also had the tenacity of a serpent. In terms of fire-type soul beasts, it also had outstanding defensive abilities. The three-headed poisonous serpent's poison-type abilities and water-type abilities were rare among water-type soul beasts of the same level. It was the most suitable choice for the frost serpent poisonous serpent's second soul ring. Not only could it continue to strengthen the frost serpent poisonous serpent's water-type and poison-type abilities, it could also be expanded. The two of them casually plucked the water soul fruits from the center of the lake and left the valley. However, the commotion around them had already attracted the attention of many people, including a search team from the Yi family. It was easy to determine that a powerful soul beast that was far stronger than the blue spirit serpent and many other soul beasts had passed by this place. At the same time, the search team from the Yi family arrived at the valley. There were also two special characters who entered Giant Holy City. After searching the Wang family, they rushed to the Yi family and entered the Yi family under the grand welcome of the Yi family. After half a day, they left and rushed towards the giant spiritual mountain range. This is the Black Pool? On top of a mountain peak that was tightly locked by heavy clouds, Feng Yi blinked her beautiful eyes as she looked at the pool that was clear and cold like jade waves before her eyes, and then she looked at Wang Xian. Don't be surprised. It doesn't have to be a black pool. It has to be called the Black Pool. Wang Xian laughed. This pool was on the dark side of the mountain range. The terrain was narrow and there were dense clouds. The Yin energy gathered in all directions. It was extraordinary. Normally, such a place was a paradise for poisonous creatures. Looking at the sun in the sky. At this moment, the sun was shining brightly. The blazing yang qi penetrated through the heavy clouds, and the shadows of the many mountain peaks shone from the middle of the sky onto the surface of the pool. One could see the luxuriant branches and leaves of the ancient dark green trees all around. Under the clouds, many ancient trees drooped their branches and fell on the water surface. The scenery was extremely beautiful. Wang Xian said to Feng Yi, "It's daytime right now. The water-type and poison-type soul beasts in this pool will only come out to hunt for food when the moon is high in the sky to absorb the power of the moon. Alright, let's rest here for a while. When night falls, we'll come back to investigate." Feng Yi was also rather tired. However, he was mentally exhausted, especially after experiencing the impact of the legacy of that terrifying mighty figure. The two of them found a small stream on one side of the black pool. The valley here was deep and serene, covered by dense clouds. It was quite secluded. The stream gurgled. Feng Yi was a person who loved beauty to begin with. She couldn't endure it and actually ran into the stream to bathe. Wang Xian sat cross-legged on the rock. Feng Yi wasn't afraid. In her eyes, Wang Xian's impression was still that of a 6-year-old child from beginning to end. She took off her white dress piece by piece, leaving only her undergarments and underwear. Her voluptuous figure was practically revealed in front of Wang Xian. The stream gurgled, clear and transparent. The beautiful young woman's cloud-like hair cascaded down behind Feng Yi's slender neck like a waterfall. The bright and beautiful sky fortunately shone on the beauty's black hair, turning into waves of mysterious luster that flowed leisurely. Black, so black that it was enchanting and mysterious. The elegant long hair couldn't cover the beautiful young woman's white and elegant neck. Her gem-like skin flickered with white light, stubbornly piercing through the obstruction of her black hair. Through the gaps between the threads, it was like a sharp arrow that pierced through the youth's heart. It was so white that it shook one's soul. The beautiful woman's jade face was facing the youth's gaze from the side. Droplets of water flowed along her beautiful white jade-like skin and slowly flowed into the bright red undergarment. At this moment, one couldn't help but turn into that chilly water that flowed down along with her skin, as if she sensed that slightly fiery gaze. Feng Yi's jade face flushed red like the peach blossoms in March. Her watery eyes turned slightly with a hint of rebuke. "Stinking brat, you're asking for a beating." A faint voice sounded as if it was right in front of Wang Xian. Wang Xian subconsciously turned around and didn't dare to look again. However, he glanced sideways at the water surface from the corner of his eyes. Following that, Wang Xian realized that a faint mist of water had curled up around the beautiful young woman. The huge stream was instantly filled with mist and ripples. He could no longer see the unparalleled beauty in the world clearly. She was like a fantasy with thousands of temptations. What a pity, what a pity! Wang Xian retracted his gaze and looked down regretfully. At this moment, he wasn't as weak as before when he was strengthened by the blue spirit Jiao snake's soul ring. His physique had strengthened by a lot. Under the stimulation of strength, he already had the figure of an 11 or 12-year-old. Although he was still a little lacking, he could still use some of his abilities. Don't worry, don't worry. Sooner or later, I will eat this exceptional beauty. Wang Xian comforted himself in his heart. As the sun set in the west, the curtain of night fell. The sky gradually darkened and the blazing yang energy of the sun star dispersed. Without the suppression of the yang energy, the dense yin energy in the vicinity of the black pool began to converge from the yin side of the mountain peak. The temperature began to drop rapidly. Beep, beep, beep. Wang Xian found some dry firewood and started a fire. Actually, at Wang Xian's realm, he was already immune to cold and heat. Some yin energy couldn't hinder him. However, he liked the feeling of sitting alone by relying on the fire, especially when there was a peerless beauty like Feng Yi beside him. The beautiful young woman's hair was draped over her shoulders. She was barefaced. The most difficult thing to shift one's gaze away from her was that she had just appeared from the water. She was only wearing a loose white muslin dress. Her twin peaks were towering and her straight long legs were exposed. Her hair was dripping with sparkling and translucent water droplets. Her astonishing curves were faintly discernible. It almost made one want to transform into a wolf and rush up to her. They wanted to ruthlessly press her down on the blue stone and turn into a beast to ravage her. Every frown and smile could make one's heart beat faster and drive one crazy. It was a strange impulse that was filled with flames. It was an astonishing instinctive temptation and desire to conquer. Wang Xian knew that this wasn't some Hotian bewitching technique. As the ancestor of the inner demons, no Hotian bewitching technique could tempt him, the ancestor of the inner demons. This was an innate, natural bewitchment. Perhaps this was the charm of this exceptional beauty. Chapter 1240. Croak, croak. As the moon rose into the sky, strange croaks of frogs could be heard in the cold and clear stream under the cold moonlight. Fog covered the top of their heads, and it was extremely dark. The fire on the ground was gradually extinguished. Feng Yi wore her white dress again. Wang Xian's figure flashed and appeared beside the stream. At this moment, the stream was like a piece of white paper under the moonlight and gradually became as black as ink. What a dense yin energy! Feng Yi's beautiful face was solemn. Wang Xian nodded slightly. This was probably the origin of the Blackwater Pool's name. The yin energy here was too dense and gathered in the stream, causing it to turn black. Wang Xian tried to touch it with one hand. A piercing chill came from his skin and drilled into his body. It was as if 10,000-year ice needles had pierced into his flesh. What a dense yin energy! The earthen yellow soul ring on his hand vibrated as he activated his soul power. A vine quickly grew from his hand like a venomous snake and suddenly entered the stream. There were too many things that could restrain plant-type soul beasts. This was also the reason why plant-type soul beasts would be inferior to other soul beasts of the same quality. The extremely cold environment could suppress the activity of many plant-type soul beasts. However, for the frost serpent poisonous vine, the possibility of extreme cold and extreme heat was not high. After being strengthened by the blue spirit serpent's poisonous frost breath, the frost serpent poisonous vine had evolved into fine scales like a serpent. It was extremely resistant to extreme cold and extreme heat. When the frost serpent poisonous vine entered the stream, Wang Xian only felt a slight chill. Whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, there was a dazzling sound from the stream, and a fine vine that was like a venomous snake burst out of the water. Croak croak. It was accompanied by a thunderous cry. The vine swayed like a venomous snake and was tightly entangled. A black-skinned poisonous frog the size of a stone mill appeared at the tip of the vine and was tightly entangled. Feng Yi looked over with a slightly surprised expression. The Black Arrow Ghost Frog was a water-type and poison-type soul beast. Its hind legs were strong and shot out like black arrows. It was extremely poisonous, and the poison in the pustules on its back could easily kill a 1,000-year soul beast. It usually lived in extremely dark water and was very difficult to catch. The Black Arrow Ghost Frog in front of them was about 300 years old. Wang Xian glanced at it and shook his head. This kind of 300-year soul ring was too weak to withstand the surging soul power in his body. In its panic, the Black Arrow Ghost Frog desperately secreted a slimy poison in an attempt to escape from the binding of the Frost Dragon Poisonous Spirit Vine. However, the Ice Dragon Poison Spirit Vine was like a poisonous snake. Once it had entangled its prey, how could it let go so easily? The potent poison was completely useless against the poison spirit vine. Wang Xian's mind moved. The Frost Wyrm poisonous spirit vines spread out like a whip and released the soul beast. The frightened Black Arrow Ghost Frog watched as the tightly bound vines loosened. It shot into the water like a sharp arrow and disappeared. The Black Arrow Ghost Frog was terrified. "Let's go." Wang Xian stood up and looked in the direction of the black pool. That was the hunting ground for tonight. When the two of them arrived at the black pool, Wang Xian felt his scalp go numb the moment he saw the surroundings of the pool. So many poison-type soul beasts are gathered here? Feng Yi's expression was also filled with shock. In the black pool, countless poisonous creatures were floating and sinking in the water. They were densely packed together like a deep and serene hell. Many of them were still fighting and devouring each other. The branches of some ancient trees at the side were also crawling with poisonous beasts. Black arrow poison frog, red chain snake, black belly mamba, three-colored black widow, golden toad, 5 poison jade cloud spider. All kinds of poisonous creatures gathered above the black pool. It was shocking. Croak. Right at this moment, a strange thunderous sound was heard. It was like the sound of drums and thunder. Many poisonous beasts in the black pool felt uneasy when they heard this strange sound. "Xian, look over there." Hearing the voice of the beautiful woman in white, he looked at the shallow beach at the side of the black pool. He saw a piece of land suddenly protruding out from the shallow beach. The stones trembled and the moonlight shone. A dark-skinned, strange big fellow drilled out from the ground. Croak. From time to time there would be a kind of thunderous frog croak. The croak shook and the sound wave actually caused the rocks in the surrounding hundreds of meters to shake and shift. 7-star jade toad? Seeing this big toad, Feng Yi was moved. Wang Xian's eyes looked at this poisonous beast and his expression changed slightly. The 7-star jade beast was one of the kings among the poison-type soul beasts. Its grade was extremely high and it was the king of all poisonous toads. Wang Xian had seen it in an ancient book about poison-type soul beasts in the Wang family's library. It was described that the 7-star jade toad had 7-star pustules on its back. Each pustule represented 1,000 years of maturity. This kind of poisonous toad had a lazy temperament and generally wouldn't attack easily. However, its venom was extremely overbearing and insidious. Even if it was an Earth-rank expert, they would definitely die. It usually ate many poisonous creatures as food. Almost 4,000 years of maturity. Wang Xian looked at this poisonous toad. This poisonous toad's skin was oily green, and there were 3 disgusting black pustules on its back that had already bloomed. The 4th pustule had already appeared. It was obviously close to 4,000 years of maturity. When this 7-star poisonous toad appeared, an invisible deterrence appeared. Many poisonous creatures backed away from more than half of the black pool and stayed far away. This 7-star poisonous toad was the king among the many poison-type soul beasts in the black pool. Xian, what do you think of this 7-star poisonous toad? Feng Yi looked at the white-clothed youth beside her with a questioning gaze. Wang Xian was somewhat silent. It was unlikely that 2 poison kings would appear in one place. The legend of the 3-headed poison flood dragon in the black pool might not exist. However, this 7-star jade toad, whether it was its age or the ability of its soul ring to strengthen it, was somewhat different from Wang Xian's original idea. Xian, actually, this 7-star jade toad's soul ring is comparable to your frost dragon poison spirit vine. It contains the power of the toxic strengthening. It can definitely strengthen your frost dragon poison spirit vine's poison ability to the limit. Who knows, it might even have the chance to evolve your frost dragon poison spirit vine into a toxic overlord grass. The toxic overlord grass was an extremely powerful martial soul after a poison-type martial soul evolved. There were also the toxic overlord flower and the poison immortal empress. This was a good way to go about it. After pondering for a moment, Wang Xian shook his head. Feng Yi was somewhat puzzled. Wang Xian did not explain. It was not that the ultimate poison immortal empress's power was weak. In fact, as a high-level form of a poison-type martial soul, the poison immortal empress was extremely terrifying. It could be said to be a mid-high level martial soul form at the top of the pyramid. However, the path that Wang Xian had decided on long ago was to mainly strengthen the water type, and the poison type was only a supplementary development. And, right at this moment, Wang Xian's heart stirred. He looked around the black pool, and the surrounding poisonous insects' cries actually quieted down in an instant. Something was wrong. Chapter 1241. A powerful fellow has arrived. Xian, it seems that your luck tonight is not bad. At this time, Feng Yi's voice quietly sounded. She grabbed Wang Xian's arm and the 2 figures landed on the top of an ancient tree like a breeze. Croak. At this time, the 7-star jade toad seemed to have sensed something and let out a warning buzz. The poisonous creatures in the pool parted like a tide, opening up a path for him. Squeak, squeak. A strange, gloomy and hoarse voice came from the forest on the side of the black pool. The strange voice was extremely hoarse, but there was a special gloominess and mystery to it. In Wang Xian's eyes, countless scorpions emerged from the depths of the forest like a tide on the side of the black pool, occupying the entire forest. Even the tree trunks could be seen densely packed and terrifying scorpions that made one's scalp tingle. There were many types. It seems that a scorpion king has appeared in the forest over there. This Scorpion King wants to compete with the 7-star Jade Toad for the title of Poison King. Feng Yi's beautiful eyes flickered with splendor. A mountain could not accommodate 2 tigers. This sentence was also suitable for poisonous creatures. The Black Pool was the place where the extreme Yin energy gathered. It was a paradise for poisonous creatures and the best feng shui in the eyes of poisonous creatures. Only kings could live there. I wonder what kind of Scorpion King it is. Wang Xian's eyes flickered. There were many types of Scorpion Kings. Everyone knew that there were Scarlet Scorpion King, Black Water Scorpion King, Six-Eyed Scorpion King, Burning Flame Scorpion King, Three-Eyed Jade-Eyed Scorpion King, and many others. It should be the Black Water Scorpion King. This place is densely forested and can't see the sun all year round. Moreover, the water-een energy is dense and the life energy is brewing death energy. It is the most suitable place for the Black Water Scorpion King to live. Feng Yi's beautiful eyes fell on the depths of the forest. Among the many scorpions, as Feng Yi said, the Black Water Scorpion occupied the majority. It was a very special scorpion. Its entire body was as black as ink, but its tail was scarlet red. At a glance, one could tell that it was a highly poisonous creature. The Black Water Scorpion's attack power was extremely strong and incomparably ferocious. This kind of scorpion was not afraid of meat and would even bite each other of its own kind. Rumble. Under the moonlight, a large area of ancient trees fell. A huge and terrifying monster appeared in the ancient forest. It was a huge black scorpion the size of a bull. Its 6 scorpion legs were like sharp blades, easily cutting through the ancient trees in the forest. There was a pair of middle eyes in the middle of its back. They were as black as ink, and there were 3 side eyes on each side of its front. They shone with a cold and cruel light. Sizzle! Several slender tails danced in the air like whips. The scarlet tails carried a sweet scent. As the scent passed by, the broken pieces of the ancient trees and rocks became like fermented food, turning into pitch-black poisonous water. It's actually a mutated Blackwater Scorpion King. Feng Yi was astonished. 3-tailed Blackwater Scorpion King? Wang Xian's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. This Scorpion King exuded a very strong pressure. Clearly, it was over 4,000 years old. In terms of age, it was even superior to the 7-star jade toad. The rarest thing about it was that it was a water-type and poison-type soul beast. Xian'er, you've taken a fancy to this 3-tailed Blackwater Scorpion King? The beautiful woman in white saw the surprise in Wang Xian's eyes. That's right. Wang Xian nodded, his eyes moving slightly. This Blackwater Scorpion King is excellent in both water-type and poison-type. Especially after it mutated, it seems to have some mysterious abilities. It's very suitable for my Frost Dragon Poison Vine. The most important thing is that it's old enough. It's just that after it mutated, its strength has probably surpassed the average Earth-rank soul martial artist. I'm afraid it won't be easy to deal with. Wang Xian frowned. The beautiful woman doted on Wang Xian to the bone. Seeing this, she immediately spoke. That's simple. Xian'er, take a look at Mother's methods. Her expression was indifferent, as if the mutated 3-tailed Blackwater Scorpion King was an ant. A circle of scarlet invisible divine fire flew out from her body. There was an extremely dignified, noble, and primitive aura. The moment they felt this extremely dense and hot aura, countless poisonous creatures in the Blackwater pool began to flee and disappear into the water. Even the 7-star jade toad was no exception. The Phoenix martial soul of the Phoenix clan was the nemesis of countless poison-type soul beasts, especially the Phoenix divine fire that could burn anything. To many poison-type soul beasts, it was a disaster. Rumble. The 3-tailed Blackwater Scorpion King was abnormally fierce. When it encountered a powerful enemy, although its eyes were filled with fear, it waved its 3 scorpion tails and tore through the sky to attack the beautiful woman in white. With more than 4,000 years of maturity, its strength was extremely tyrannical, especially the poisonous barbs on the 3 scorpion tails. Even if a heaven-rank expert was infected, they would be turned into thick water. Good beast, you actually dare to attack me! After the beautiful woman in white's figure appeared in midair, the phoenix fire wings behind her spread open. Her eyes were cold, and an invisible wave appeared from her body and suddenly swept over. With the naked eye, the 3-tailed Blackwater Scorpion King's 3 poisonous tails seemed to have encountered an unparalleled existence. They suddenly froze in midair, unable to move. Heaven-rank domain? Wang Xian's eyes lit up. That was the simplified version of the power of space and time. Every heaven-rank expert would give birth to a heaven-rank domain after comprehending their soul skills to the limit. Feng Yi's talent was extraordinary. She was actually at the peak of the earth rank, and she had already received the comprehension of a heaven-rank expert. It was shocking. Bang, bang, bang. It seemed to be the sound of rocks exploding inch by inch. It was accompanied by a mournful and hoarse low hiss. The three scarlet poisonous tails broke inch by inch. The invisible domain power covered the three-tailed Blackwater Scorpion King's shell and broke inch by inch. The three-tailed Blackwater Scorpion King's 6 scorpion legs also broke inch by inch at the same time. The huge three-tailed Blackwater Scorpion King was like a crab that had its shell peeled off. It was extremely miserable. After a moment, it was only left with its last breath. Without needing Feng Yi to call out, Wang Xian extended a hand and the Frost Wyrm Poison Spirit Vine flew out. It was like a straight poisonous needle that pierced into the three-tailed Blackwater Scorpion King's head and gently stirred it. The three-tailed Blackwater Scorpion King immediately took its last breath. Seeing this, the dense flames around Feng Yi's body retracted, and the invisible power retracted into her body. Her beautiful face slightly heaved a sigh of relief. Although she had comprehended the Phoenix clan's Phoenix domain, she was still in the Earth rank. Opening her domain like this consumed a lot of energy, and she wouldn't be able to take it after a long time. On the side, following the death of the three-tailed Blackwater Scorpion King, the group of poisonous scorpions ran away without a trace. On the ground, a faint white light was emitted from the lifeless three-tailed Blackwater Scorpion King. Gradually, it formed a white soul ring. After the death of a soul beast that was over 4,000 years old, its soul ring would be pure white. It emitted an abnormally dense pressure. Wang Xian's eyes flickered, and he immediately sat down cross-legged. He activated his soul power, released his martial soul, and guided the soul ring. Chapter 1242. Wang Xian was undoubtedly much more familiar with condensing a soul ring for the second time. Condensing a soul ring for the second time not only required the support of a vast amount of soul power, but at the same time, one also needed to be familiar with and understand the skills within the soul ring, and even control at least 10% of them. This was a much higher requirement for a soul martial artist. But to Wang Xian, with the creator space as his foundation, there was no pressure. Endless soul power surged into the soul ring, and the second white soul ring quickly stabilized on the ice dragon poisonous vine. A 4,500-year soul ring. In Feng Yi's impression, many peerless geniuses in this realm could only withstand 3,000 years at most. Furthermore, to be able to stabilize it in such a short period of time, this was quite shocking. This also meant that Wang Xian's foundation was stable and his soul power was vast. Rolling soul power flowed down from the soul ring like lava and merged with the ice dragon poisonous vine. Faint white soul power flowed out from the martial soul. The ice dragon poisonous vine was changing rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. The icy blue vine turned black, and the saw-toothed leaves became tight and thin. The vine was growing, and traces of dark red thorns could be vaguely seen on the vine. The tip of the vine was hardening, sharpening, and becoming more piercing like the scarlet venomous stinger of a scorpion. The spirit vine swayed, and new vines appeared from both sides. Following that, a soul power vortex gradually appeared above the strengthened martial soul, and rolling soul power turned into a long river that flowed into the body of the white-clothed youth sitting cross-legged. Seeing that everything was on the right track, Feng Yi's tensed expression relaxed slightly. But in the next moment, the beautiful lady's expression changed drastically. Kill! Two extremely cold, killing intents suddenly flew out from the surrounding thick clouds. Two figures soared through the air and blasted towards the white-clothed youth sitting cross-legged. Two waves of soul power were earth-shattering and raging waves. They were two terrifying experts in long robes. Their expressions were cold. They were none other than the flying star, Mengzhen, who had rushed over. After coming into contact with the Yi family, the two of them quickly found the location of the black water pool with the guidance of the many tracking experts of the Yi family, and suddenly arrived at this juncture. According to the young master's orders, the two of them first locked onto Wang Xian. And the moment they attacked, they used their famous ultimate move. Meteor Blade, Star Splitter Arrow. Fei Xing, Mengzhen. Feng Yi recognized the two. These two people were not nameless among the Earth-grade experts of the West Chu Empire. Both of their martial spirits were peculiar tool martial spirits. Fei Xing's martial spirit was the flying star saber, which could break through anything. Wherever the saber light went, people would be killed before they could even react. Mengzhen's Starsplitter bow was a powerful weapon for long-range attacks. It was said to be able to shoot down stars. Feng Yi couldn't care less about her anger. Her figure flashed and blocked in front of Wang Xian. An invisible force gushed out like a landslide and a tsunami. It suddenly stopped the flying star knife and the star splitter arrow. It's a domain? Fei Xing and Mengzhen's expressions changed drastically. The two of them could feel the terrifying heat from the flying dagger and the star arrow directly penetrating into the depths of their souls. In that instant their faces turned scarlet red. The terrifyingly high temperature almost roasted their insides. No, she hasn't broken through to the heaven stage yet. She won't be able to hold on for long. Fei Xing groaned. Let's exhaust her to death. On the side, Mengzhen's vicissitudes of life flickered slightly. He glanced at Feng Yi and simultaneously urged the majestic soul power in his body to flow into his martial spirit. Natal star, descend. Starlight surged from their bodies. In the 33rd layer of the Milky Way above their heads, two stars lit up. The majestic power of the stars turned into a solid pillar of light that poured into their physical strength. Their strength increased greatly and was amplified by their martial spirits. Buzz, buzz. The flying star knife and the star splitter arrow shot towards Feng Yi's body like a stream of light. Earth-grade experts were different from profound-grade experts. They were able to set their own star in the 33rd layer of the Milky Way. The strengthening of the star's power was not something an ordinary profound-grade expert could compare to. I also have the power of the stars. The power of the Phoenix constellation, descend. Following Feng Yi's angry shout, a large number of stars in the 33rd layer of the Milky Way above their heads lit up. Strands of illusory starlight connected these stars and turned into a huge constellation. It was like a phoenix flapping its wings. Compared to the flying star, Mengzhen and Mengzhen's starlight that was 10 times more intense shot down and enveloped Feng Yi's body. The phoenix flames in Feng Yi's body surged. The violent power pushed back like a raging wave and bombarded the flying star knife and the star splitter arrow. Puchi! The martial spirits of the two Earth-grade experts trembled and they spat out a mouthful of blood. The shock in their eyes could not be concealed. The power of the constellation! How is this possible? Their eyes were filled with disbelief. As everyone knew, only heaven-grade experts could comprehend the profound meaning of the constellation. Feng Yi was obviously only in the Earth-grade realm, although she was at the peak of the Earth-grade. The huge pressure rushed over and the two of them spat out blood. They only felt that under this pressure, they were extremely small. Kill! Feng Yi's eyes flashed a trace of coldness. All of a sudden, her complexion changed, and a strange flush appeared. Puchi! She spat out a mouthful of blood, and it turned into a blood mist. The huge starlight pattern around her fluctuated slightly, and in the next moment, it turned into silver dust and dissipated. The huge starlight fluctuation dissipated. The starlight backfired. Her injuries haven't healed after 6 years. She's dead for sure. Fei Xing's gloomy horse face flashed with a trace of joy. Let's put in more effort. Don't hurt her. She is young master's prey. If we kill her, young master will not be happy. Our mission is to kill that little bastard. His beautiful beard fluttered in the wind. Although he was already middle-aged, Meng Zhen was definitely a first-class handsome man. He was very calm. Fei Xing's expression suddenly calmed down from his excitement. Thinking of that terrifying young master, he secretly shivered. The two of them looked at each other and their eyes fell on the white-clothed youth sitting cross-legged on the ground. Their killing intent was dense. They were waiting for Feng Yi to be unable to hold on so that they could use a thunderous momentum to kill Wang Xian in one move. Feng Yi's beautiful face was like a flame. The phoenix god fire that had calmed down in her body suddenly erupted and went out of control, causing her to be like an arrow at the end of its flight. The phoenix god fire around her body fluctuated as she struggled to support the domain. Seeing that the phoenix god fire in her body was about to go out of control, her phoenix eyes revealed a trace of determination. Even if she had to perish together with these two, she couldn't let them hurt Wang Xian. At this moment, a change occurred. 3 black and red lights shot out from the depths of Feng Yi's back. Like lightning, they locked onto Fei Xing and Meng Zhen. Not good. The two of them's expressions changed. Just as they were about to use their methods, the 2 red lights suddenly descended and pointed at the 2 cold-faced people's foreheads with wanton killing intent. Crack! The sound of a watermelon breaking rang out. Chapter 1243. With the skull shattered, even if an Earth-rank powerhouse's vitality was far greater than ordinary people, they would still die immediately. Feng Yi turned around. At this time, the white-clothed youth had already completed his advancement. Those 3 scorpion tail-like poisonous vines shrunk inch by inch and disappeared into his palm. Just now, it was his sneak attack that killed Fei Xing and Meng Zhen. Are you okay? Wang Xian frowned and looked at the white-clothed beauty. Just as she was about to speak, a fierce phoenix poison fire spread into her internal organs. Under the violent impact, the white-clothed beauty clutched her towering chest, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Her body swayed, and just as she was about to fall to the ground, a strong arm wrapped around her waist. Leaning on Wang Xian's arm, the white-clothed woman's cheeks were as red as fire. She was indescribably beautiful. Hugging the white-clothed beauty's shockingly soft waist, the white-clothed beauty's body temperature rose higher and higher. Looks like it relapsed again. Wang Xian shook his head. Rip. It was accompanied by a powerless and moving cry. Her bra was directly torn apart, revealing her towering snow-white breasts. The white-clothed young man bent down. The white-clothed woman's face was flushed red, and her red phoenix eyes were watery. Her charm was astonishing, and shyness flickered in her eyes. She turned her face to the other side, not daring to look at him. However, from time to time, a strange feeling would come from her chest, causing her face to blush. She was extremely aroused, and her 2 slender legs would occasionally twist together. The next morning, the golden crow rose from the east. The stream gurgled. On top of the rock, the white-clothed youth sat cross-legged. He seemed to have sat here cross-legged for the entire night. Beside him, Fei Xing and Meng Zhen's cold corpses were still there. At this time, the white-clothed youth on the rock looked much more mature than before. He looked like a 13 or 14-year-old youth with a jade-like face. It was just that his handsomeness leaned towards femininity. This was due to the influence of his martial soul. The strengthening of the water type and poison type leaned towards femininity and had no affinity with masculinity. There was a soul-stirring soul power fluctuation on his body. Peak of the black rank. After obtaining the 2nd soul ring, his soul power directly rose to the peak of the black rank. The majestic soul power did not show any signs of weakness or disorder. Next up is the 3rd soul ring. Wang Xian fell into deep thought after a night of refining. The Giant Spirit Mountain Range was only one of the mid-tier hunting grounds around Giant Spirit City. The three-tailed Blackwater Scorpion King was probably the strongest mid-tier soul beast in this hunting ground. His third soul ring was no small matter. He would probably have to set his sights on high-ranked soul beasts, and they would have to be at least 6,000 to 8,000 years old. Of course, the average profound rank expert on the continent wouldn't require such an exaggerated third soul ring. Most of the time, the limit was 4,000 or 5,000 years. That was still within the range of mid-ranked soul beasts. Most mid-ranked hunting grounds would be able to fulfill this condition. But the power in Wang Xian's body was not ordinary. The nameless soul scripture was extremely tyrannical, and the soul power he cultivated far surpassed that of ordinary soul martial artists of the same level. Wang Xian continued to choose water-type and poison-type soul beasts, but there weren't many high-tier soul beasts. Wang Xian's eyes mainly fell onto several famous high-grade hunting grounds in the West Chu Empire. Although the West Chu Empire had a vast territory, it didn't have many high-ranked hunting grounds. There were only two, and one was the Soul Beast Forest in the west. The other was the Blazing Mountain Range in the south. That place was close to the Scarlet Cloud County in the south, and its terrain was extremely special. It could be said to be a famous dry land in the West Chu Empire. The Blazing Mountain Range could be excluded. That place was a naturally huge volcanic mountain range. Among the high-ranked soul beasts, most of them were fire-type soul beasts, or some other special soul beast. The only remaining target was the Soul Beast Forest. The Soul Beast Forest was vast, and the terrain was complex. It spanned across a portion of the West Chu Empire and the Great Qin Empire's territory. There were many high-ranked soul beasts living there, and there were even peak lord-class soul beasts. Naturally, there were many types of water-type and poison-type soul beasts in that vast forest. A ray of light flashed, and Wang Xian stretched out a hand. A strange vine that was as agile as a flood dragon grew out of his hand. 2 soul rings fluctuated, and the dense soul power produced a huge sense of oppression. The first soul ring was an earthy yellow color, which meant that it was at least 1,000 years old. Generally speaking, soul rings below 1,000 years were pale yellow. The second soul ring was white, and it was as dense as white cotton. Generally speaking, soul rings between 3,000 and 5,000 years went from pale white to pure white. The older the soul ring, the purer the color. Soul rings between 6,000 and 9,999 years belonged to high-ranked soul beasts. High-ranked soul beasts' soul rings were gold, from pale gold to pure gold. Wang Xian's first soul ring was an earthy yellow color, which meant that it was obtained from a top-ranked, low-ranked soul beast. The second soul ring was pure white. Generally speaking, Wang Xian's 2 soul rings were quite powerful, far surpassing the majority of profound-rank soul beasts. They were even not inferior to some earth-rank soul beasts. However, there were still some differences between them and some earth-rank soul beasts. Earth-rank soul beasts could sense the stars of heaven and earth, and receive the power of the stars to temper their martial soul and physique. Especially during battle, they could receive the support of the stars of heaven and earth. This ability was not something that profound-rank soul beasts could compare to. Wang Xian tried to use his soul remembrance to sense the stars of heaven and earth, but he could only vaguely sense them, and was unable to use his soul power. The Wang family's cultivation method was somewhat incomplete, and the data he deduced was not enough. He was unable to accurately find the specific cultivation data of the earth-rank soul beasts. I'm afraid I still need to find a sect to borrow some ancient books and analyze the power of the earth rank and even the heaven rank. Wang Xian pondered, and there was also a trace of worry in his heart. The mastermind behind the scenes who injured Feng Yi 6 years ago was able to casually send out 2 earth-rank soul beasts. He was afraid that his own strength was very shocking. The next time he made a move, it would not be as simple as 2 earth-rank soul beasts. He raised his gaze slightly and looked at the poison vine in his hand. At this time, the poison vine had evolved for the second time. It was not appropriate to call it the Frost Dragon Poison Vine. It should be called the Blackwater Dragon Spirit Vine. It had the coiling power of a flood dragon, the powerful poison power of the Blackwater Poison Scorpion, and the ability to control the power of the water spirit. It could topple mountains and overturn seas. In the profound rank, it far surpassed other martial souls. Next, I have to enter the Soul Beast Forest as soon as possible and obtain the third martial soul. Wang Xian had a feeling that after entering the Earth rank, the power of the Master God Space would be able to directly interfere. Far away, on a green stone, a beautiful woman in white leaned sideways. Her black hair was scattered like a waterfall on the green stone. She leaned sideways and supported her head with one hand as she looked at the white-clothed youth in the distance. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be thinking of something, and occasionally, shyness would flow. It was very charming. At this moment, the white-clothed youth stood up and looked at the beautiful woman in white. "Let's go!" Next target, Soul Beast Forest. Chapter 1244. Wind Ridge County, Eternal Sect. Wind Ridge County was a county adjacent to the Soul Beast Forest in the west of the West Chu Empire. It was considered an important province in the west of the West Chu Empire. Because it was adjacent to the Soul Beast Forest, there were many soul martial artists here, including some large and small sections. The West Chu Empire had also deployed a large number of troops here to intimidate the large and small sects in the southwest. The Eternal Sect was an extremely ancient sect. However, it was only a small sect among the hundreds of sects in the southwest. The reason was that it had declined. The Eternal Sect's mountain gate was on a rather beautiful mountain peak in Wind Ridge. This place was called Shui Ping Peak. The mountain peak was majestic and not small in size. Although it could not be considered a lofty and majestic mountain range, it still had some beauty to it. Such a beautiful mountain peak could barely be considered a good place. However, to the Eternal Sect, which had occupied most of the Spirit Mountains and Blessed Lands in Wind Ridge County at its peak, this difference was too great. Eternal Sect. At this moment, two figures were looking at the mountain peak below the sea of clouds. There were many buildings and palaces on the mountain peak. Each brick and tile was very grand. However, just by sensing, one could sense that there were only 2 or 3 people left in this large sect. The strongest was an Earth Realm expert with an aura of death. He was already at the end of his life and was on the verge of collapse. These two were none other than Feng Yi and Wang Xian, who had rushed from the giant Spirit Mountain range to the Soul Beast Forest. Feng Yi said when she saw Wang Xian frown, "Xian don't underestimate this sect. Although it is a sect that cultivates ancient techniques, it is inevitable that it will decline now that it has flourished. However, it was once prominent. Even the ancient clans have to be respectful to it." Ancient techniques, modern techniques, Wang Xian's eyes flashed. Ancient techniques and modern techniques were the two main cultivation schools of soul martial artists. Modern techniques evolved from ancient technique. A portion of powerful soul martial artists discovered the changes in heaven and earth, and the migration of all living things. As a result, they evolved a cultivation method that was suitable for the environment of heaven and earth. In fact, it also proved that the efficiency of ancient techniques was declining bit by bit. In today's world where ancient techniques were gradually eliminated, modern techniques shone brightly. The Eternal Sect was one of the ancient sections. Due to their emphasis on sect rules, they didn't walk the path of the modern Eternal Sect in that great era and gradually declined. Xian didn't you want to find an ancient technique as a basis? The Eternal Sect's inheritance is one of the most outstanding inheritances among the ancient technique. Now that the Eternal Sect has declined, those ancient records have been buried. I believe they won't refuse my request. Feng Yi's expression flickered with sharpness. After saying that, Feng Yi looked at Wang Xian. "Xian, actually, you don't have to value ancient techniques so much. Although I don't have a lot of them, I still have a few sets of cultivation techniques that are more suitable for the modern technique school. In terms of quality, they are definitely not inferior to the inheritances of ordinary large sects. Feng Yi was truly puzzled. Why would Wang Xian think of looking for the legacy cultivation methods of those ancient sects that had been eliminated? Wang Xian shook his head. Only the ancient can understand the present. The cultivation method inheritance contains traces of the mysteries of the evolution of heaven and earth. Such traces are excellent resources for the Master God space. Of course, Wang Xian wouldn't say this out loud. It was just Tao. I need a part of the outstanding ancient technique inheritance as a basis to deduce the most suitable cultivation method for myself. This wasn't a lie either. The deduction of the Nameless Soul Sutra's earth-level cultivation methods required a basis. 3 days later, in the Eternal Sect's Inheritance Pavilion, faint sunlight spilled in through the window. In the neat library, the ancient records were placed in an unusually neat manner. Wang Xian put down the last ancient book in his hand. He closed his eyes slightly to digest it. After a while, he opened his eyes. He couldn't hide the smile in his eyes. This time, he had benefited a lot. Using a few modern technique inheritances in exchange for a few days to read in the Eternal Sect's Inheritance Pavilion. It's really a good deal. It's a pity that those fellows don't know what's good for them. Wang Xian shook his head inwardly. There are so many complete ancient technique inheritance manuals. As long as someone is diligent and willing to study them, it won't be difficult for them to find their own path of modern technique. He looked extremely satisfied. The Eternal Sect's inheritance manuals were complete. They had a detailed description of the earth and heaven levels. With these manuals, the Nameless Soul Sutra's earth and heaven levels cultivation methods would be completely completed. But then, Wang Xian couldn't help but laugh. He had forgotten that he had the creator space as his foundation. He had the creator space's deduction ability. Ordinary people wouldn't have the ability to digest all the manuals in the Inheritance Pavilion. He looked at the vast sea of clouds by the window. Faint golden light shone in through the window that was entwined with green vines. The white-clothed youth was tall and slender. He was so handsome that he didn't seem like someone from this world. Then, he stretched lazily. He opened the door to the Inheritance Pavilion. Outside the door, Feng Yi looked slightly happy. Xian, did you find what you were looking for? She glanced at the black-robed old man beside her. The black-robed old man looked like he had seen the vicissitudes of life. His face was like old tree bark. Although his hair was still black, he gave off a feeling of twilight. He was the Eternal Sect's last guardian, Hu Songzi. He was also the only Earth Realm expert in the Eternal Sect that Wang Xian had sensed 3 days ago. Wang Xian knew what Feng Yi meant and nodded immediately. Let's go. Excuse me. He cupped his hands towards Hu Songzi. You're welcome. Hu Songzi opened his eyes. His expression was weathered. He looked at the white-clothed youth and nodded. He hadn't seen such a graceful youth in a long time. The reason why he agreed to Feng Yi's request so readily was that he hoped to form a good relationship with her, besides the few present-day books that were very important to the Eternal Sect. This white-clothed youth was already a peak Black Realm expert at such a young age. In the future, he would definitely be a peerless almighty whose name would shake the galaxy. He would take this opportunity to form a good relationship with her. If the Eternal Sect were to encounter a calamity in the future, this would be a life-saving straw. This Hu Songzi has good taste. Seeing that Hu Songzi didn't take advantage of his seniority, and was instead polite, Feng Yi finally felt a trace of joy in her heart. In reality, Feng Yi felt that the Eternal Sect had gained a great deal by exchanging a few present-day books for a few days of reading time in the Inheritance Pavilion. According to her personality, she would at most give some benefit. Unfortunately, this was the white-clothed youth's request. Feng Yi had always doted on the white-clothed youth, so she couldn't refuse. Seeing that Hu Songzi was so tactful, a trace of a smile finally appeared on her beautiful face. The two turned into streaks of light and rushed into the sky. They disappeared into the clouds in the blink of an eye. The peak was shrouded in clouds. In the palace, separated by a thick palace door, Yun Shui knelt on the ground. Fei Xing and Meng Zhen are dead? They died at Feng Yi's hands? A cold voice sounded from within the palace door. Chapter 1245. Young master, it's this subordinate's negligence this time. Yun Shui lowered her head. Trash, you can't even handle such a small matter. After a long time, a cold and angry voice came from the palace gate. Is Feng Yi still in Giant Spirit City? It's this subordinate's incompetence. Young master, according to our information, Feng Yi and Wang Xian's whereabouts are unknown after the Giant Spirit Mountain Range. However, not long ago, news came from the Wind Ridge County that they had stayed in the Eternal Sect for a period of time. Yun Shui lowered her head. This subordinate thinks that their target might be the Great Spirit Beast Forest. This subordinate and the others think that Feng Yi is about to break through to the heaven rank and wants to hunt for her fourth soul ring. It's impossible to break through to the heaven rank. Feng Yi was hit by my phoenix-seeking phoenix. That phoenix-seeking phoenix was refined by the Sex Pill Emperor. It's made from 9 types of phoenix feather flames and 108 types of unique yang poison. It's an extremely strange poisonous flame. Once it enters the body, it will definitely merge into the depths of the martial soul. She definitely can't refine it. If she can't refine this strange poisonous flame, she will never be able to enter the heaven rank in this lifetime. A gloomy sneer came from the palace gate. She probably sensed something and put up a last-ditch struggle, but it's useless. At most, this young master will be able to comprehend the last level of the 10,000-star treasure book in half a month and comprehend the mysteries of the heaven rank. At that time, this young master will personally take care of that bitch and her son. Heaven rank? A trace of envy flashed through Yun Shui's eyes. Heaven rank. Once one advanced to the heaven rank, whether it was one's identity or status, it would undergo an earth-shaking change. No matter which sect it was, when a heaven rank expert was born in the sect, they would hold a banquet and respectfully address him as the ancestor. This was a symbol of strength. With this young master breaking through to the heaven rank at such a young age, even those old monsters in the sect had no choice but to submit to him. At that time, even if Feng Yi was from the Phoenix clan, the Phoenix clan would definitely not make things difficult for a young heaven rank expert with a boundless future just for Feng Yi. The Great Spirit Beast Forest, the Sea of Clouds, the Spirit Beast Forest, stretched as far as the eye could see, as high as the mountains. Above the clouds, a map appeared in Wang Xian's hand. This map was a summary of all the information he had regarding the Great Soul Beast Forest from the Eternal Sect's Inheritance Pavilion. It basically included the areas where the various types of soul beasts gathered. The red lines were exceptionally clear. Wang Xian's targets were water-type and poison-type soul beasts, numbering more than 6,000. This was a high-ranked soul beast. There were many places that could be ruled out. Excluding a portion of the areas that were underlined, there were only a few places left in Wang Xian's eyes. After several evolutions, the water spirit vine had become the black water dragon spirit grass. The next evolution would be the black water dragon scale flower. The evolution direction of the water spirit vine was basically fixed. There were only a few paths left to choose. Naturally, Wang Xian already had a plan for his next soul ring. Shall we go to the Jade Lake first? Jade Lake? Isn't that the territory of the Jade Water Spirit Emperor? Feng Yi was slightly surprised, but she nodded. The Jade Water Spirit Emperor evolved from the Jade Water Dragonwood. The Jade Water Dragonwood is a plant-type and water-type soul beast. Its soul ring has a huge effect on strengthening the vitality of plant-type soul beasts. Using this soul beast's soul ring as my third soul ring is indeed the best choice. Wang Xian smiled. It wasn't just that. The jade water dragonwood had several mysterious uses in the ancient book. It wasn't as simple as just increasing the vitality of plant-type soul beasts. Jade Lake. There were green mountains and clear waters here. Countless ancient trees lined up in rows. At a glance, it was as if they had come to the depths of a primeval forest that had been untouched for thousands of years. To the soul martial artists who often roamed the outskirts of the great soul beast forest, most of them knew that this was one of the playgrounds for plant-type and water-type soul beasts. It was very dangerous here. Very few soul martial artists entered this place alone. Most of them chose to form groups or hire a hunting group to escort them in. A hunting group was a special organization that relied on the Great Soul Beast Forest as a large-scale hunting ground for soul beasts. They helped the young masters of some large families hunt soul beasts and received a certain amount of benefits. This was a very profiteering line of work. However, experienced veterans knew that most of these hunting groups weren't good people. If they met some good people, it would be fine. Most of them would only raise the price at the last minute and extort a sum at most. If he were to encounter some black-hearted hunting groups, he would be in for a bad time. These hunting groups were active in the Great Soul Beast Forest, and sometimes they wouldn't mind acting as bandits, robbers for money and women. Wang Xian and Feng Yi had just entered the edge of the Jade Lake when they were entangled by several brokers from hunting group. The outskirts of the various large hunting grounds were usually guarded by brokers under the command of these hunting groups. Normally, when they saw people coming, they would come forward to entangle them and snatch their business. Wang Xian and Feng Yi both had extraordinary temperament. With one look, one could tell that they were from aristocratic families. Especially Feng Yi's absolutely beautiful figure. Many brokers at the outskirts of the Jade Lake occasionally turned their gazes over, carrying a sense of greed and passion. However, when they saw several brokers from large hunting groups coming forward, some brokers from small hunting groups could only suppress the unwillingness in their hearts and wander around the surroundings. Young master, madam, please consider. Our Bloody Slaughter hunting group is a famous large hunting group in this area. We have more than 300 members. The leader and 2 vice leaders are both Earth stage experts. With our escort, we guarantee that you will return with a bountiful harvest this time. Our Cool Breeze hunting group can also guarantee your safety. We will give you a favorable discount. Choose our Thawing Fire hunting group. We are the overlords of this area. Several brokers looked at Wang Xian and Feng Yi with fervent gazes. This madam said that we don't need any hunting group. If you continue to follow, don't blame this madam for being impolite. Feng Yi had long noticed the unclean gazes of these brokers. If she didn't have some misgivings, she would have burned these people to ashes with her Phoenix divine fire. Along the way, the two met many members of such hunting groups who came forward to strike up a conversation. They had long been annoyed. When the brokers were reprimanded, their expressions suddenly turned cold. Looking at each other, one of the shifty-eyed middle-aged men glanced at Bai Yi with lewd eyes. Madam, don't regret it. You must know that there are all kinds of terrifying things in the Great Soul Beast Forest. When you encounter danger, I'm afraid that no one will be able to save you. I advise madam to think about it carefully. Yes, this Great Soul Beast Forest is not peaceful. If a beautiful woman like madam falls into the hands of someone with bad intentions, I'm afraid. Another middle-aged man also spoke in a strange tone. He was the broker from the Bloody Slaughter hunting group who was abnormally polite from before. Feng Yi and Wang Xian looked at each other and sneered. They didn't want to pay attention to these brokers with bad intentions and went straight to the periphery of the Jade Lake. The brokers looked at each other and smiled gloomily. Go back and report to the leader. 2 more fat lambs have come. They hurriedly scattered. This group of people is going to be unlucky. Many brokers who were watching from the sidelines secretly shook their heads. The Bloody Slaughter hunting group, the Cool Breeze hunting group, and the Thawing Fire hunting group weren't good people. Each of them was black-hearted and merciless. They would probably send people to intercept and kill them soon. Thinking that such a peerless beauty would fall into the hands of these hunting groups, many people secretly felt that it was a pity. Chapter 1246. Xian we have to be careful later. Those people have impure thoughts and might already have their eyes on us. In the forest, Feng Yi's expression was serious. No worries. Wang Xian shook his head. In the forest, Wang Xian became more cautious after entering the Jade Water Lake. There were many plant-type soul beasts, demon spirit trees, in the forest. Demon spirit trees were tree demon soul beasts, and each of them was a high-level hunter in the forest. Their vines had paralyzing venom, and once caught, it would be hard to escape. In such an environment, generally speaking, plant-type martial souls wouldn't be of much use. Fire-type martial souls, on the other hand, could unleash the principle of mutual promotion and restraint to the extreme. Rumble! Two figures quickly shuttled through the forest. Feng Yi grabbed Wang Xian, and the two fiery red phoenix wings under her ribs swept out. No plant-type soul beasts dared to find trouble. Most soul beasts had high intelligence, and the older they were, the more they knew how to seek luck and avoid danger. If one were to talk about bullying the good and fearing the evil, there was probably no one better than them. The red light swept past. Within the forest, the savage and greedy demon spirit trees were like quails, trying their best to disguise themselves as ordinary ancient trees. The forest was quiet. Some greedy grass and flower-type, plant-type soul beasts hid themselves deep in the forest. The tyrannical aura sweeping through the forest was too terrifying. Many tree demons and flower demons could feel that, if they were swept by the terrifying flames, it would be a disaster. But it was clear that not all soul beasts were afraid of the power of fire. In the forest, there were many plant-type soul beasts that weren't afraid of fire. Within the forest, Feng Yi and Wang Xian's figures appeared on the ground, not far from the Jade Lake. They stopped their galloping momentum. In front of them, a strange soul beast was blocking their path. In mid-air, patches of green Chinese medicine packets seemed to have appeared. They were like mature dandelions, floating in mid-air. It was a special plant-type soul beast. It's a spirit-eating seed. Feng Yi's jade face was filled with seriousness. Wang Xian frowned. In ancient books, he had seen the outline of this soul beast. Spirit-eating seed relied on absorbing the soul power of all living things to survive, and was an extremely rare parasitic soul beast. It was the demon spirit tree's soul beast companion. These spirit-devouring seeds were extremely sensitive to soul power fluctuations. It was like a moth flying into a flame. Clearly, the soul power undulations from their rapid flight had attracted the attention of these spirit-devouring seeds. Don't let them get within 3 feet of you. Otherwise they will absorb your soul power. Feng Yi's expression changed. She moved and stood in front of Wang Xian. Creak creak. Those teacup-sized, traditional Chinese medicine bags with blue and green skin squeaked. Pairs of strange little eyes appeared in front of the traditional Chinese medicine bags, as though their eyes were glowing as they looked at Feng Yi and Wang Xian. Hundreds and thousands of them screamed as they crawled out from the tree trunks. They covered the sky and covered the earth, rushing down like a flood. Phoenix divine fire, incinerate worlds. Feng Yi smiled coldly and rolled up her sleeves. 4 to 5 fireballs appeared in front of her and transformed into small fire phoenixes that suddenly flew out with a fierce cry. Flames swept across the sky. Wherever the divine fire passed, the Chinese medicine packets were reduced to ashes. Too weak. Wang Xian shook his head. These parasitic soul beasts, as long as they were not close, were as weak as babies in the eyes of many powerful individuals. Creak, creak. However, the unique screams of the spirit-devouring seeds appeared again. More blue and green, traditional Chinese medicine bags crawled out from the ancient trees. This time, the number was more than 10 times more than before. It looked like there were tens of thousands. They gathered together, their eyes were excited as they stared at the two of them. They screamed as they turned into ovens and charged at the two of them. It's useless no matter how many there are. Feng Yi smiled coldly. An intense ball of fire swept out as she waved her sleeves. Tens of thousands of spirit-devouring seeds suddenly turned to ashes. However, seeing this scene, Wang Xian shook his head inwardly and said, "Let's hurry and leave this place." These parasitic soul beast seeds absorb the tree demon's power to grow. Their vitality is exuberant and they grow very quickly. We can't kill them all. On the contrary, the more we kill, the more there will be. Creak, creak. Wang Xian already saw another wave of spirit-devouring seeds being born at the roots of the ancient trees. These seeds were like tumors at the roots of the tree demon. They expanded endlessly and were extremely terrifying. However, the spirit rings that were killed were completely useless. They were basically all less than 5 years old. These individuals were all less than 5 years old and were extremely weak. However, when they were grouped together, it was extremely shocking. Two figures rushed towards the jade water lake like flowing lights. Rumble! Flames bombarded, and from time to time, hundreds and thousands of spirit-devouring seeds would turn to ashes in the high-temperature flames. After a few waves of god fire, Feng Yi's chest heaved up and down. Her breathing was slightly chaotic. Wang Xian's figure was constantly moving as he observed these peculiar spirit-devouring seeds. Feng Yi had already been annoyed by these little things to no end. Phoenix constellation, descend. After exhausting a lot of energy, Feng Yi's jade face flashed with a trace of anger. She brazenly began to change the constellation power in the sky. A huge star light descended from the starry sky and a dense brilliance enveloped Feng Yi's body. Phoenix's fury. The expanding phoenix god fire exploded from Feng Yi's body. Creak, creak. A charred smell wafted through the air. Wang Xian looked over. The numerous spirit-devouring seeds in the air were suddenly swept clean. But following that, an even more frequent squeaking sound came from the roots of many ancient trees. Wang Xian frowned and looked over. In the entire forest, more than half of the ancient trees were emitting this strange sound. There are actually so many spirit-devouring seeds here? Feng Yi was shocked. Her jade face sunk. Just as she was about to make a move, Wang Xian grabbed her arm. "Wait a minute." Wang Xian's face was grave as he looked at the sky. Feng Yi followed Wang Xian's gaze. This time, the rapidly growing spirit-devouring seeds did not immediately pounce over. Instead, they rushed towards a strange spirit-devouring seed in the center like a tide. Like a tide, hundreds of thousands and millions of spirit-devouring seeds rushed over. They were emitting a peculiar fluorescent light. In his eyes, they were subdued and fused inch by inch. It was as if a huge ball of light was born in the center of the forest. Not good. This seems to be the fusion evolution of a parasitic spirit beast? Seeing this scene, he seemed to have thought of a special situation. Wang Xian's face turned ugly. Fusion evolution? Feng Yi's delicate body trembled. Her expression was abnormally heavy. There was still a trace of disbelief in her eyes. How is this possible? Isn't this a phenomenon that only exists in legends? Chapter 1247. Fusion evolution was an extremely rare situation. Generally speaking, most soul beasts evolved when they reached maturity, causing a portion of the ancestral power in their bloodline to awaken, and then evolve. This kind of evolution was called atavistic evolution. Another kind was to devour the power of other soul beasts, and the soul power in their body would increase explosively, thus evolving. During this process of evolution, the soul beast would more or less be affected by the devouring of other soul beasts, and its body would change. This kind of evolution was attributed to variant evolution. As for fusion evolution, it was almost in the legends. Generally speaking, only soul beasts that lived in groups, such as parasitic soul beasts, would undergo fusion evolution. Before parasitic soul beasts evolved, their individual strength was extremely small, and they usually hunted in groups. But after fusion evolution, there would be a reversal. Their individual strength would become extremely strong. Roar! A huge fluctuation came from the center of the light ball, and a terrifying power erupted from the center. In the center of the light ball, the first thing that stretched out were 4 terrifying green-skinned limbs. Those limbs could be said to be extremely thick. Boom! It landed on the ground, and cracks appeared on the ground. Following that was a terrifying big head that was like a wheat bucket. The monster also carried a green-blue bag on its back that looked like a chrysanthemum-shaped vase. It looked very funny. However, the heavy pressure that came with each breath was like a stormy sea. Feng Yi and Wang Xian's expressions were abnormally heavy. This pressure was close to that of a 10,000-year overlord. This is a spirit-eater beast king. Wang Xian's expression was grave as he said to Feng Yi in a deep voice, "Be careful, this spirit-eater beast king is formed by gathering the power of millions of spirit-eater seeds. It is close to 9,000 years old, and has all the abilities of the spirit-eater seed. There is also a very mysterious ability that is very difficult to deal with." "Xian, you know this kind of soul beast?" Feng Yi's beautiful eyes lit up, and she was slightly expectant. "Then do you know where its weakness is?" "I'm not sure about its weakness." Wang Xian shook his head. "I've only seen this kind of description in the Eternal Sex records, but I'm sure that it definitely has the ability to plunder and absorb soul power. In my opinion, you can try attacking its head, heart, or the swollen bag on its back." Wang Xian's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. He was a little interested in this spirit-eater beast king. This spirit-eating beast king was extremely rare, and its abilities were mysterious. If his guess was correct, once it was killed, the soul ring it gave birth to would definitely be extremely outstanding. Phoenix Constellation's power, soaring phoenix wings. Almost without hesitation, Feng Yi used the power of the Phoenix constellation in the sky. Dense starlight shone down, and a power close to heaven rank appeared. Wang Xian's eyes flickered. Heaven rank and suzerain rank were of the same rank. Feng Yi's strength was not inferior to the spirit-eating beast king. Screech! With a crisp phoenix cry, a fire phoenix with overflowing flames flew out from behind Feng Yi. Like a comet, it pounced towards the spirit-eating beast king. The moment the spirit-eating beast king took shape, it struck its head. Roar! A miserable roar was heard. The spirit-eating beast king's head was charred black, but a strong vitality could be seen emerging from its charred skin. An emerald blue light was emitted. Visible to the naked eye, the spirit-eating beast king's injuries were recovering. "There's no effect. Its head isn't its weakness." Wang Xian shook his head. Roar! Just at this time, the spirit-eating beast king faced the sky and roared. In the midst of the roar, an earth-yellow ball of light appeared in its bloody mouth. In the next moment, it locked onto the 2 figures and broke through the air. Feng Yi's face changed. Her eyes were sharp and her hands were fast. She grabbed onto Wang Xian and in a flash, she appeared 300 meters away. Rumble! An earth-shattering explosion sounded out. At the same time, a yellow mist filled the air. So smelly! Wang Xian's nose twitched. He felt dizzy. A terrifying stench that was enough to make him faint came out. It seemed to have drilled into his internal organs and even his soul. Why is it so smelly? In the midst of the shock, Wang Xian's spirit power circulated and covered all the pores on his body. He pulled Feng Yi and flew away. Phoenix Constellation's power, Phoenix Tail Arrow. At this time, Feng Yi's expression was cold. Her entire body was covered in flames. Layers of yellow qi could not get close to her body. The terrifying fire congealed and transformed into a red arrow. Like a shooting star, it pierced through the disgusting yellow mist and suddenly struck the heavy spirit-eating beast king's heart. The blazing phoenix tail arrow pierced through like a ray of light, straight into the heart. Roar! The spirit-eating beast king was in unbearable pain. It let out an earth-shattering roar. The surging sound waves shook the forest. Many strong martial artists at the Jade Lake were shocked. This level of spirit power undulation was not something an ordinary Earth stage martial artist could contend against. Many strong martial artists had strange expressions. The power of the phoenix tail arrow was extremely tyrannical. Rumble! The spirit-eating beast king's heart exploded. Layers of bluish-green flesh flew out. It was extremely terrifying. The fire landed on the ground. The beautiful lady in white had a pair of fire wings behind her. It was extremely beautiful. She looked at the spirit-eating beast king and frowned. She could see that although the spirit-eating beast king's heart had exploded, its life force had not weakened. Instead, the phoenix poison fire had invaded and burnt flesh was regenerating layer by layer. The beautiful lady in white was secretly shocked. What a difficult monster to kill! It can regenerate even after breaking its head and heart. Its life force is much stronger than plant-type spirit beast. Let's try that vase-shaped pouch on its back. She tapped her foot, and a stream of light appeared in midair, revealing her figure. Phoenix divine fire, burn all things. The dense fire was like a mighty sun. It locked onto the pouch on the spirit-eating beast king's back and suddenly fell. Bang! The spirit-eating beast king's aura was abnormally strong, but it looked abnormally heavy. It was still immersed in the wail of its heart exploding. The fire descended once again. Rumble! In the midst of the furious roar, the spore pouch on its back suddenly exploded. It was torn apart in the explosion of fire. Roar! The furious roar resounded through the clouds, as if it had exploded in this forest. It's not a weakness. Wang Xian's expression changed slightly. The roar of a dying beast and the roar of a fighting beast were two completely different things. Wang Xian could clearly distinguish between them. This spirit-eating beast king's life force was simply tyrannical. It was much more tyrannical than expected. Be careful! Wang Xian's expression suddenly changed. At this moment, the fire surrounding the spirit-eating beast king suddenly fluctuated. Hundreds of root-like vines suddenly flew out and tied the beautiful lady in white in midair. The beautiful lady in white's jade-like face turned cold. She was about to mobilize the phoenix divine fire to burn these vines, but in the next moment, her jade-like face turned pale and a trace of shock flashed in her eyes. She only felt that she was soft and could not use the slightest bit of soul power. Furthermore, she could sense that her soul force was being silently sucked away by these strands of soul force. Chapter 1248. Looks like I can only do it. Seeing this scene, Wang Xian shook his head slightly. A trace of soul remembrance was triggered. He sensed the Master God space, the huge power surging, but it was very obscure. That was the obstruction of the Star River continent's heaven and earth power. However, as he advanced to the profound rank, the power of the Master God space could barely extend over a small part. He stretched out a finger, and an invisible force seemed to cut through time and space and bombarded the spirit-eating beast king. The enormous spirit-eating beast king's surroundings condensed. In the next moment, inch by inch, it shattered into pieces like porcelain fragments. Chi-chi! Flames flickered, and Feng Yi took the opportunity to break free. She was still in shock, and the situation of being tied up by the tentacles was too terrifying. She raised her head and was slightly shocked by what she saw. The spirit-eating beast king, which was brimming with vitality, was killed so easily. Wang Xian's face was slightly pale. With his current peak profound rank realm, using the power of the Master God space, even if it was only a trace, was a huge burden. If it happened a few more times, his body would probably collapse. On the spirit-eating Beast King's body, a layer of golden light could be seen gathering with the naked eye, gradually converging into a golden soul ring. Waves of pressure were emitted, and it was extremely tyrannical. Obviously, it was an extremely high-quality soul ring. Looking at this soul ring, Wang Xian's pale face carried a slight smile. Although this soul ring was not a water or poison dual-type soul ring, it was very suitable for his third soul ring. The spirit-eating Beast King's soul ring skills were very powerful. If he didn't make a move this time, even if a heaven-rank powerhouse came, they wouldn't be able to easily kill this spirit-eating Beast King. Glancing at the slightly pale Feng Yi, Wang Xian was about to step forward to collect the soul ring. Suddenly, his expression changed. His figure flashed and grabbed Feng Yi. His figure flashed and in the next moment, he appeared hundreds of feet away. A faint red light streaked across the place where he was standing just a moment ago. The red light flickered. A handsome red-robed young man appeared on the spot. He looked at Wang Xian and Feng Yi, who had dodged the attack, with a surprised expression. He seemed to be surprised that Wang Xian was able to dodge his sneak attack in the first moment. His gaze fell on the spirit-eating Beast King's soul ring on the ground. Without a doubt, this was an exceptionally precious soul beast. Looking at the soul ring, a trace of greed flickered in his eyes, but it was quickly extinguished. There was nothing he could do about a soul ring of this level. His eyes flickered and locked onto Wang Xian and Feng Yi. Especially on Feng Yi. Third brother's information is correct. She is indeed a peerless beauty. Moreover, she is a peerless beauty who has exhausted most of her vitality. It seems that I, Bloodhand, am quite lucky today. A lustful light flickered in his eyes. This person was none other than the leader of the Bloody Slaughter hunting group, Bloodhand. The huge commotion caused by the battle between Wang Xian and the Spirit-Eater Beast King had intimidated many experts. However, this person was savage by nature and thought highly of himself, so he had actually snuck in. "Little bastard, I'll kill you first so that you won't get in my way." With a cold sneer, a bloody shadow appeared on his body and transformed into a bloody light that shot towards Wang Xian. It was his martial soul, the blood-dissipating divine blade. It was able to absorb blood essence and turn into a blood shadow to attack. It was very strange. Relying on this strange martial soul, his sneak attacks were always successful. He was one of the best among his peers. Facing a heavily injured Earth stage expert and a peak profound stage expert, he could easily capture them. Thinking that he would be able to enjoy the peerless beauty in white, Bloodhand's eyes flickered with excitement and lust. Wang Xian sneered at the blood shadow that was rushing over. The other party's martial soul was rather strange. It was a tool martial soul, and it could transform into a blood shadow to absorb and plunder blood essence. However, this kind of trash dares to sneak attack me. It's purely courting death. Wang Xian sneered and stretched out a hand. An invisible force extended from the blood shadow that was rushing over. With a flash of blood light, the blood shadow transformed into a figure in a blood-colored robe. Bloodhand raised his head and looked at the white-clothed youth not far away in shock. His body turned into powder inch by inch. Poochie. Traces of blood dyed the white clothes red. Feng Yi heard the commotion and turned her head to see the skin under the white-clothed youth's clothes crack inch by inch like a spider web. Blood seeped out and it was abnormally terrifying. Xian, the beautiful woman in white, looked extremely worried. "It's fine, it's just a little bit of backlash." Wang Xian shook his head. His gaze fell on the nearly 9,000-year pale golden soul ring in front of him. He took a few steps forward and sat down cross-legged. He wanted to take advantage of the time before the power of the Lord God's space completely dissipated to completely condense this third soul ring. Feng Yi looked at Wang Xian with some worry. Wang Xian had just suffered a backlash and immediately condensed the third soul ring. This was too hasty. In the next moment, her expression returned to normal. The most important thing to do now was to recover her soul power. Just now, when she was entangled by the soul-eating beast, more than half of her soul power was sucked away in just a moment. The power of the Phoenix constellation. Vast and mighty starlight fell, and the silver light pillar was like the Milky Way flowing backwards and entering her body. The power in her body began to recover. Condensing the third soul ring was much easier than expected. Perhaps it was because of the trace of the power of the Lord God's space that had yet to dissipate. After an hour, Wang Xian had completely condensed this soul ring. The pure gold soul ring was above the first earthy yellow soul ring and the second white soul ring. It was like a pure gold bracelet, slightly vibrating and emitting a strong soul power pressure. Feng Yi felt this fluctuation and opened her eyes. This kind of soul power pressure was not inferior to her, a peak Earth stage powerhouse. This was simply unbelievable. However, with the inheritance of that peerless existence, in Feng Yi's eyes, this was actually very normal. The chapped skin injuries on Wang Xian's body had completely recovered. Exuberant vitality was emitted, forming a solid emerald brilliance. Wang Xian's eyes flickered with joy. At this moment, he felt a surge of power slowly shaking from his body, oppressing the space. According to Wang Xian's understanding, the power of space and time in the Star River continent was much more difficult than in the Spirit Sea continent. He raised his head. The skill strengthening of this third soul ring was unexpectedly powerful. The first was the vitality strengthening. The martial soul's vitality was greatly increased. Even if the poisonous vines were broken, they could continue to regenerate. This kind of soul skill was not strange. Many plant-type martial souls had this ability. The second was the soul seal, soul seas strengthening. This ability was previously used by the soul-eating beast king on Feng Yi. Being bound by the vines, she was powerless and couldn't use her soul power. This ability could be said to be a great killer. The third was something the soul-eating beast king did not have time to use. It was a rather special mysterious ability. Soul parasitism. Chapter 1249. After devouring countless spirit-devouring seeds, this spirit-devouring beast king had become a strange existence similar to a mother. It could breed many strange seeds and was not restricted to parasitizing the tree demon's body. Wang Xian used the power of the Lord God space and analyzed almost all the skills in the soul ring. At this moment, this parasitic ability was also inherited by his martial soul. The fourth was soul power sensing. This was a basic ability belonging to the spirit-devouring seed. The spirit-devouring seed had an extraordinary sense of soul power. In his hand, a faint emerald blue light flickered, and a strange spirit vine grew out of Wang Xian's hand like a dragon. In the blink of an eye, it covered a large area of the forest. After its vines were strengthened by the third soul ring, there were no longer only 3 vines. Instead, there were many vines, each of which was like a crawling poisonous snake. There were also strange black flowers lying on the vines. At a glance, one could tell that they were highly poisonous. The barbs on the vines were indistinct. Once entangled, it would definitely be extremely terrifying. At this moment, it was obviously inappropriate to call it the black water dragon spirit grass. However, it was not appropriate to call it the black water dragon spirit flower. Perhaps I should call it the black water spirit devouring flower. Wang Xian smiled slightly. After breaking through to the earth rank, his strength was not only limited to the purification of his martial soul. At this moment, he could clearly feel that he had formed a connection with a star in a nebula above the 33 heavens. It was different from the Spirit Sea continent's fated star. It seemed that after awakening his martial soul, the fate of this star was tied to his, and even the surrounding constellations. As his strength increased, this connection would become deeper and deeper. Once the opportunity came, he would be able to comprehend his own constellation's mysteries. Perhaps it was because he was born noble. The star in the sky was also extraordinary. Wang Xian vaguely felt that the essence of this star was definitely not inferior to his original primeval main star. As for the specifics, he was not sure. However, he was certain that this star's attributes should be water and wood, and its power was extremely strong and majestic. Through this star, Wang Xian could vaguely feel that there was a group of stars around him resonating, forming an extremely mysterious pattern. That pattern was a constellation, and it contained many extremely mysterious mysteries of heaven and earth. Even the main god space needed a certain amount of time to decipher the secrets within. Since it's a star with water and wood elements, it will be called the Azure Dragon Star from now on. Azure Dragon, king of water and wood, myriad spirits worshipping the heavens. Azure Dragon Star, a good name. On the side, Feng Yi opened her mouth and said with a smile. Her beautiful jade face had a slight smile that was extremely charming and moved one's heart. At this moment, Wang Xian's peak Earth-grade power was being emitted. He was no weaker than her. The beautiful woman in white was both happy and proud. If he could reach the heaven stage, he would be considered a top expert in the entire West Chu Empire. Wang Xian's expression did not change as his gaze fell upon the forest. His expression was cold. "Are you guys still not leaving?" The emerald starlight on his body flickered, and countless vines grew out of his body, covering the sky and the sun as if they had enveloped the entire forest. Under the tremendous pressure, many of the existences who were secretly watching were shocked. The auras fled like rats, leaving quickly. A bunch of unpresentable fellows. A trace of understanding flashed across Feng Yi's beautiful face. Turning around, her gaze landed on the white-clothed youth. "Xian, what do you plan to do next? Are you still going to the Jade Water Lake? Do you need to go into seclusion for a few months to polish your foundation?" "No need, my foundation is stable, there won't be a problem. The next fourth soul ring is very important, but the Jade Water Soaring Dragon Wood is a top-grade wood-type soul ring, so it's suitable." Wang Xian's eyes lit up. The Jade Water Soaring Dragon Wood had several very special abilities, and these special abilities were extremely important for plant-type soul beasts. According to the information Wang Xian found in the ancient books and the analysis of the Lord God Space, the Jade Water Soaring Dragonwood's soul ring had a strange fusion and balancing ability with the various major soul rings of the plant-type soul ring. However, Wang Xian was very cautious. His third soul ring was the soul ring of the 9,000-year spirit-eating beast king. With his current soul power strength, the position of his fourth soul ring should be able to withstand more than 15,000 years of soul power. There was a clear dividing line between 10,000 years and 10,000 years of soul power. Soul beasts under 10,000 years of maturity and 10,000 years of soul power were two completely different concepts. The limit of a normal peak Earth rank powerhouse's soul ring was around 10,000 years. Those who could exceed 11,000 years were peerless geniuses. However, Wang Xian couldn't be considered a genius at all. After breaking through to the Earth rank, he could sense that the power of the Lord God Space was becoming more and more majestic. Once he advanced to the Heaven rank, there might be an explosive increase in power. The two of them left the place. However, the news of two peak Earth rank existences entering the Jade Water Lake with the intention of advancing to the Heaven rank also quietly spread out from the mouths of various powerhouses. The Heaven rank realm was no small matter. This attracted the attention of many large powers, and even alarmed some Heaven rank powerhouses in the sections. Heaven rank powerhouses were the foundation of a first-rate large power. Every additional Heaven rank powerhouse represented another existence to divide the cake. If possible, some heaven-rank powerhouses didn't mind killing them. However, just as the news spread out, Wang Xian and Feng Yi had already arrived at the Jade Water Lake. This Jade Water Lake looked abnormally strange. A large area of water surrounded it, and this was a huge lake. But the strange thing was that there were patches of forest growing in the lake. Ancient trees stood in the middle of the lake, reaching to the sky like umbrellas. This was a kind of strange tree. The bark carried a verdant color, suffused with a dark green fluorescence. The top of the tree was like a large umbrella. The most peculiar thing was that this strange tree even had vines growing on it. Jade water soaring dragon wood. Wang Xian's figure flew up. Looking over, this long and narrow lake with a faint water light was completely filled with this kind of jade water soaring dragon wood. The height was uneven, like a giant in the water. The older it was, the thicker it was, and also the taller it was. The more mature it was, the bark actually suffused a jade water color, like pieces of dense dragon scales. And the older it was, the more dragon-shaped the trunk was. It was rumored that when the jade water soaring dragon wood was 10,000 years old and above, it could break free from the body and transform into a soaring dragon, breaking away from the limitations of its roots, and able to roam everywhere. Soaring dragon was a type of plant after transforming into a dragon. However, after transforming, the soaring dragon's abilities were even stronger, and its body would become smaller instead. What Wang Xian wanted to find was a jade water soaring dragon wood that was over 15,000 years old. A jade water soaring dragon wood that was over 15,000 years old had clearly transformed into a soaring dragon long ago, breaking away from its root. The difficulty of finding a tiny soaring dragon in such a huge lake could be imagined. Chapter 1250. Above the Jade Lake. The Jade Lake was shaking violently. Rumble. The roaring sound of the water shook both sides. Roar! A low and violent sound came from the lake. Above the lake, two figures floated in the air. The white-clothed youth stretched out a hand, and a faint purple brilliance circled around his fingertip like an invisible purple dragon. The purple dragon aura burst forth. Like a fish that smelled bait in the lake, a pale green dragon suddenly appeared in the shallow waters of the lake. It looked to be only a few feet long, but its eyes were filled with majesty, ferocity, and greed. Its gaze landed on the white-clothed youth. The instinct deep in its bloodline made it sense that if it swallowed that wisp of purple aura, that white-clothed youth, it would definitely be able to advance further and break through the overlord rank, becoming one of the few monarch-rank soul beasts in the great soul beast forest. Xian, what is this? Why is this soaring dragon so greedy for your wisp of purple aura? On the side, Feng Yi was still in shock. Wang Xian's handsome face flashed with a trace of a smile. Sure enough, as he expected, the otherworldly ancestral dragon essence Qi had extraordinary benefits for the dragon-type soul beasts here. All methods originated from the same source. Kid, who are you? How do you have the ancestral dragon essence Qi? Tell this king, when this king swallows you, I will try my best to let you die painlessly. A thunderous voice sounded. Visible to the naked eye, the 10-foot soaring dragon's body was like a balloon, turning into a 100-foot dragon and looking down at Feng Yi and Wang Xian in the air. Its ferocity was awe-inspiring. The power of a overlord rank was released. Feng Yi's expression changed greatly. Under this power, she felt like an ant, unable to resist at all. A overlord rank existence was equivalent to a heaven rank. It was definitely not something an earth rank powerhouse could resist. Want to swallow me? Wang Xian sneered. Kid, you're not afraid of death? The soaring dragon looked at Wang Xian in surprise. Only when facing an existence stronger than myself will I feel fear. What's there to be afraid of facing you? Wang Xian shook his head. You dare to look down on this king? The soaring dragon flew into a rage, its eyes flashing fiercely. In the next moment, Countless wooden vines appeared from the ground, sweeping towards Feng Yi and Wang Xian. Wang Xian's expression was cold as he looked over. Countless vines broke out of the ground and turned into dust that filled the sky. His gaze locked onto Ting Long inch by inch, the void collapsed and distorted. The surging space-time energy was vast and boundless, but it suddenly drowned Soaring Dragon without a sound. Ting Long's face flickered with astonishment. No, its mouth opened as wide as it could, but no sound came out. Bang! In the next moment, the huge dragon body that was hundreds of feet long crashed to the ground. In an instant, the power of the Lord God's space wiped out all of Soaring Dragon's vitality. Faint purple light gathered above Ting Long's corpse and gradually turned into a purple soul ring that exuded a vast and mighty power. Wang Xian smiled and descended. He was about to condense this soul ring. Haha, I really didn't think that I, Gu Chun, would be so lucky today. I actually picked up a 15,000 plus soul ring for free. Just then, a thunderous voice rang out, accompanied by a burst of wild laughter. The sky trembled and a large wind and rain came. In the water, a powerhouse in a long robe walked out of the wind and rain. He had a white face and no beard. His hair was tied up high, and he held a wooden staff in his hand. He looked at Soaring Dragon's corpse with a fiery and greedy expression. Seeing this person, Feng Yi's expression changed slightly, and she said to Wang Xian, "It's Gu Chun, the heaven-rank ancestor of the Gu family, the overlord of the Wind Ridge County." Wang Xian nodded slightly. Rumble! At this moment, a bolt of lightning flashed in the sky, and thunder rumbled. The heaven-rank powerhouse called Gu Chen's expression changed, and he looked at the sky with fear. "Gu Chen, if you want to eat alone, you have to ask me, Lei Yun." A violent force swept over, causing tens of thousands of thunder to rumble in the sky. Amidst the lightning, a mighty middle-aged man wearing a blue robe and carrying a large saber on his back walked out. Lightning surged on his body, and the devastating destructive power jumped like arcs of lightning. His gaze swept across the Soaring Dragon's corpse and landed on the purple 10,000-year soul ring. A strange look flashed across his eyes. What a pity, so it was a Soaring Dragon that caused such a commotion. This old man is not a water type, but a wood type soul martial artist. I can't condense this soul ring, but even so, I can't let this old thief Gu Chun take advantage of me so easily. He thought in his heart and looked to the side. 2 peak Earth-rank powerhouses? His gaze landed on the beautiful woman in white and his eyes lit up. There's such a beauty in this world? Wang Xian frowned. He sensed the undisguised lust in this heaven-rank powerhouse's eyes. Feng Yi's face was as cold as frost. If not for his identity as a heaven-rank ancestor, she would have immediately turned this person into ashes. Lei Yun, this Soaring Dragon soul ring was discovered by me first. Gu Chen looked at Patriarch Lei Yun with a fearful expression. He was determined to get this Soaring Dragon soul ring. Although this Soaring Dragon soul ring was not enough to become his 5th soul ring, he could use a secret technique to fuse it with his 4th soul ring and greatly increase the power of his 4th soul ring. Gu Chun, your Gu family is the same as our Lei family. Both are large families in Wind Ridge County. Let's not talk nonsense. That woman belongs to me, and the soul ring belongs to you. But other than that, you have to give the small soul crystal mine that the Gu family just discovered outside the Great Soul Beast Forest to our Lei family. Lei Yun's expression was cold. His gaze occasionally turned and landed on Feng Yi, and greed flashed across the corner of his eyes. Gu Chun glanced at Feng Yi with slight regret in his eyes. This woman was a heavenly beauty, and from her appearance, it was obvious that she was a woman of inner charm. She definitely had a peerless famous artifact on her, and was a blessing in bed. Such a beauty could only be taken advantage of by this old lecher, Lei Yun. As for the condition at the back, it made his heart ache. A small soul crystal mine was a huge sum of money to some small families. The Lei family had a large business, but a small soul crystal mine was not a small sum. However, he was determined to get the soaring dragon's soul ring. Back then, in order to break through to the heaven rank, his fourth soul ring was slightly flawed. If he could get the soaring dragon's soul ring to fill this gap, there was hope for him to reach the monarch rank in the future. What are the two of you discussing? How can we, the two parties involved, be left out of such a big matter as dividing up the benefits? A voice suddenly sounded. Gu Chen and Lei Yun were stunned. They turned around and looked at the white-clothed youth beside the beautiful woman in white. The corners of Wang Xian's mouth curled up into a cold arc. These two heaven stage ancestors had already set their sights on him and Feng Yi. In front of him, they were already preparing to divide up his spoils of war and women. Chapter 1251. Little bastard, are you courting death? Lei Yun's face was suffused with a trace of coldness. Gu Chen's face also sank. Let's kill this eyesore first, then we'll split the benefits. Wang Xian looked over. That's not right. Lei Yun and Gu Chen were about to stir up the vast soul power in their bodies, but in the next moment, their faces changed as they discovered that they were unable to move. A strange power appeared soundlessly, and it seemed to seal their soul power and even their martial souls. Wang Xian looked at the slightly dazed Feng Yi. I kept their voices, you can torture them however you want. Don't kill them first, beat them up ruthlessly first, it doesn't matter if you cripple them or kill them. Wang Xian stared at the two heaven-rank powerhouses with killing intent. He liked to repay grievances with justice. These two dared to have ideas about him. He definitely couldn't let them die so easily. Before they died, he had to beat them up ruthlessly. Xian'er, you sealed their power? Feng Yi's beautiful eyes looked at the white-clothed youth in disbelief. Sealing two heaven-rank powerhouses with just a glance, even the legendary monarch-rank powerhouses couldn't be compared to him. Wang Xian nodded slightly, his gaze looking at the purple soul ring on the ground. He didn't have the time to deal with those two heaven-rank powerhouses. To him, this purple soul ring was the most important. He went forward and sat down cross-legged, beginning to condense this purple soul ring. Seeing this, Feng Yi turned around and looked at Gu Chen and Lei Yun. Gu Chen and Lei Yun's faces changed slightly. They vaguely knew that they had hit an iron plate this time. What do you want to do? Gu Chen's expression was gloomy. Little girl, let this old man go. My Lei family will reward you greatly. Reward? Feng Yi's beautiful face was as cold as ice. A trace of ruthlessness flashed through her eyes. If it wasn't for Wang Xian's power, she would have fallen into the hands of these two old farts and suffered humiliation. Crackle! Flames gathered in her hand, and a fiery red whip lashed out in the air like a poisonous dragon, causing a thunderous explosion. Gu Chen and Lei Yun, the two heaven stage experts' faces changed. A trace of fear flashed across their faces. You two old beasts, didn't you covet this great ant's beauty? Today, this great ant will play with you. Feng Yi's beautiful face flashed with killing intent. Just as she was about to lash out with her whip to teach these two heaven-rank experts a lesson, she suddenly frowned and glanced at Wang Xian beside her. We cannot disturb Xian'er's cultivation. With this thought, the flame whip wrapped around Gu Qing and Lei Yun. Grabbing them, Gu Qing and Lei Yun appeared on a rocky beach 3 kilometers away. They were hung on two large trees, hung up and lashed out with the whip. A moment later, miserable screams rang out from the rocky beach. The battle between Wang Xian and Ting Long was extremely intense. Almost everyone in the outer perimeter of the Soul Beast Forest could sense it. Seeing that the terrifying fluctuations had disappeared, some of the bolder experts stealthily approached the Jade Lake. However, as soon as he reached the Jade Lake, he was dumbfounded. The scene in front of them was too beautiful. He didn't dare to look. An extremely beautiful woman was holding a flame whip and fiercely lashing out at two ugly old men. The white-clothed woman's figure and appearance was something no one had ever seen before. This kind of beauty was enough to cause the downfall of a city. However, her actions were completely out of proportion to her beauty. She was actually beating up two old men in the middle of the Soul Beast forest by the Jade Lake. Could it be that this beautiful woman has some special fetish? More than one expert thought so. Many experts began to think. Being beaten up by such a beautiful woman wasn't something they couldn't accept, as long as they could kiss her. That's not right. Why do those two old men look so familiar? Suddenly, a blue-clothed youth was stunned and exclaimed, "Do you think so too? I've always thought they looked familiar." At the side, a short youth was also deep in thought. This group of youths were all well-known figures from several large families in the Wind Ridge County. Especially the blue-clothed youth who spoke earlier. He was the Lei family's famous genius of this generation, Lei Tianyun. The others were also elites from various large families in the Wind Ridge County. The Gu family's Gu Tongtian, the Tang family's Tang 13, and the Ling family's Ling Xiu were all outstanding talent. But to be honest, these two old men are really miserable. Look at their bare chests and breasts, even their buttocks are exposed. One look and you can tell that they must have done something shameful to incur that lady's hatred. At the side, Gu Tongtian had a disdainful expression. He stared at the two old men with disdain. Many people secretly nodded. Seeing this scene, almost everyone subconsciously leaned towards Fengyi. Between the wretched old men and the beautiful woman, there was almost no choice. Especially the latter's temperament was so otherworldly, pure and holy. The scene of a wretched old man plotting to murder a beautiful woman and being hung up and beaten by the woman naturally entered their minds. Two wretched old farts. Serves them right. I should carve the word pervert on the buttocks of these two old farts. From time to time, there were young aristocratic family disciples who spoke. Gu Chun and Lei Yun's cultivation were sealed, but the extremely sharp five senses of a heaven stage expert were still there. They heard a group of people discussing and pointing. The two of them were about to faint from anger. Especially among the onlookers, there were many disciples of the Gu family and Lei family. Among them, there were also a few junior disciples that two of them thought highly of. For example, Lei family's Lei Tianyun, Gu family's Gu Tongtian. Even the disciples of the two families couldn't recognize their own ancestors. It was enough to see how badly the two of them fought. The whip formed by the flames was formed by the true phoenix fire. Even if it was a piece of divine iron, it could be beaten into a divine iron that his mother wouldn't recognize. That's not right. Why do I feel that one of the old men looks a bit like the Lei family's ancestor Lei Yun? At this moment, a weak voice sounded. When this voice came out, in an instant, everyone looked at this person. No, when ancestor Lei Yun married his 16th concubine, I was fortunate enough to enter the Lei family to drink wine and saw ancestor Lei Yun from afar. When these words came out, many people secretly nodded. Everyone in the Wind Ridge County knew that although the Lei family's ancestor Lei Yun was a heaven stage expert, he was extremely lascivious and had more than 20 concubines. The group of people's expressions became more suspicious. They looked carefully, but the more they looked, the more they found it to be similar. However, it became more and more unbelievable. The Lei family's ancestor Lei Yun was a heaven stage expert. How could he be hung up and beaten by a beautiful woman here? For a moment, everyone's expression was somewhat strange. Among them, the faces of a few disciples of the Lei family turned purple like a pig's liver. Chapter 1252. Don't you guys find the other old man very familiar? At this moment, a small voice spoke. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice. This time, it was a disciple of the Gu family. Gu Tongtian glanced at this disciple. "Third brother, what do you want to say?" This person was none other than one of his cousins. No, big brother, why do I feel that the other old pervert? No, the old senior looks like our ancestor. After hearing what third brother said, I also feel that he is a bit like our ancestor. It's just that he is usually very dignified now. I really can't recognize him. Yeah, now that you mention it, I also feel that he is one of our ancestors, Gu Chun. The group of Gu family disciples looked hesitant. Gu Tongtian. The group of experts looked at each other speechlessly. However, thinking about it carefully, it was extremely terrifying. Lei Yun and Gu Chun were both heaven-rank experts, but they were caught and hung up like this. How powerful was that woman? The group of people looked shocked and began to send people back to the family to report. Something big happened at the Jade Lake. Half an hour later, Wang Xian had finished condensing the fourth soul ring. There were several ways to strengthen the soaring dragon soul ring. The first was to strengthen vitality. This somewhat overlapped with the spirit-eating beast king's soul ring strengthening ability. The second was to strengthen armor penetration. The roots of the jade water soaring dragon would had a terrifying penetrating power. Even if it was a diamond wall, it could still break through it. The third was to strengthen water. This was the ability of the jade water soaring dragon would after it evolved into a soaring dragon. When Wang Xian killed the blue spirit flood snake, he had obtained the water ability to stir up trouble. Now it was upgraded to move clouds and rain. The control of water power was greatly enhanced. The fourth was to strengthen wood. The jade water soaring dragon wood was the king of wood. After the wood was strengthened, the evolved black water spirit eating flower would have the ability to control the power of 10,000 trees. Moreover, it would have the ability to suppress plant-type martial souls of the same rank. The fifth was to strengthen the dragon's prestige. Although the soaring dragon was a plant that had transformed into a dragon, it was still a type of dragon. Among the various types of spirit beasts, the dragon clan had always been at the top. They possessed the might of the dragon clan and had a certain deterrent effect on martial spirits. The sixth was to strengthen the scales. The soaring dragon's scales were abnormally tough and could greatly strengthen the vines of plant-type martial souls. The vines of the black water spirit-devouring flower would be as tough as divine weapons. In addition to these 6 enhancements, Wang Xian's strength had also increased tremendously after breaking through to the heaven rank. The soul power in his body went from the earthy yellow of the human rank, to the pure white of the profound rank, to the pure gold of the earth rank, and finally, after breaking through the heaven rank, it turned into a strange purple power. And as he advanced from the earth stage to the heaven stage, there were many skills among his 4 soul rings, and he could choose one of them to evolve into a domain. Wang Xian chose to evolve his water elemental ability. His cloud travel and rain summoning ability evolved into a water elemental domain. This was a domain. According to the many ancient books that Wang Xian had analyzed, a heaven rank expert could possess multiple domains. Every soul skill that was comprehended to the extreme could be transformed into a domain. When one reached the monarch level, they would be able to turn it into their personal domain. The strength of a monarch-level expert was close to that of a legendary god. Wang Xian was at the peak of the heaven rank after breaking through to the heaven rank. He was only half a step away from the legendary monarch rank. He could be said to be half a step into the monarch level. Monarch-level experts were elusive even on the continent. They were legendary and ancient existences. He was the absolute king. Wang Xian's strength, in a sense, was close to that of the top few people on the continent. However, after breaking through to the heaven rank, the power of the Master God space increased greatly, and to a certain extent, it grasped the general direction of the Star River continent. The Star River continent would soon face a huge calamity. That calamity would affect the entire continent, and many unknown existences would appear. At that time, the monarch-level experts behind those ancient forces would appear. Some children of great destiny would also appear and become heroes to save the world. The future would be quite lively. What Wang Xian wanted to do was to take advantage of this great calamity to reverse a part of the general trend and strive to gain a wave of benefit. Of course, if possible, he didn't mind unifying the Star River continent and turning it into an extension of his divine kingdom. Wang Xian stood up, and a layer of dense green majesty bloomed around his body. Boom! The surrounding hundreds of miles were affected by an extremely terrifying aura. The wind and clouds changed color, and lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. At the side, everyone's expression changed greatly. "Let me see your strength, the strength of the Azure Dragon constellation." Wang Xian's body floated up and rushed into the air. In the 33 heavenly stars, a constellation suddenly lit up, and vast starlight rushed down. The peak heaven rank power rushed out without any concealment. Spirit Sea Continent, Northern Spirit Region, Center of the Dream Realm. Qin Feng opened his eyes, and there was a slight sigh in his eyes. The cultivation system of the soul warriors of the otherworld is indeed not weak. The flow of time in the Star River continent and the Spirit Sea continent was different. 6 years in the Star River continent was only 5 to 6 months here. However, in these 5 to 6 months, with the help of the power of the Avatar, Qin Feng also benefited greatly. His expression changed slightly, and the power in his body changed, turning into a strange chaotic power. A ball of brilliance circulated in his palm, and it changed rapidly. Sometimes it changed into a plant, sometimes it changed into a weapon, and sometimes it changed into a huge beast. If the experts of the Star River continent saw this, they would definitely be shocked speechless. Those were clearly all kinds of strange martial souls. There was actually someone who could create martial souls out of thin air. Qin Feng had the creator space, and he was also an unparalleled almighty whose realm had reached an unimaginable level. It was not strange that he could do this. The creator space had an unimaginable analytical ability. As long as one understood some of the rules, creating martial souls was a piece of cake. Qin Feng realized that the rules of the Spirit Sea continent and the Star River continent had many similarities. Qin Feng suddenly had an epiphany. Perhaps the rules of the various continents had something in common. Perhaps the strength of the Lord Realm came from comprehending this similarity. They could transform at will, and were not limited by the rules of the various continents. As soon as this epiphany appeared, the power in his body changed slightly, and an extremely mysterious aura overflowed from his body. It was primeval, ancient, yet majestic and unattainable. Has he already touched the threshold of the Lord Realm? In the creator space, the expression of a pink-clothed girl who was playing the zither changed slightly. This kid is really something. He actually comprehended the threshold of the Lord Realm in such a short time. He probably has an advantage among the many old antiques. However, he's still lacking to advance to the Lord Realm. Her expression quickly returned to normal. Qin Feng felt this change slightly, and his eyes narrowed. Although the cultivation in his body did not increase, this kind of epiphany was definitely something that could only be encountered by chance. Next, the Star River continent is just waiting to be harvested. At this moment, his expression changed slightly, and he sensed something. A hint of coldness flickered on his face. Finally, someone can't help but extend their claws to the Northern Spirit region? Chapter 1253. The Northern Spirit Region. Ever since the Biling sect unified the Northern Spirit region, it had not been peaceful. The Biling sect had changed a lot over the years. Originally, the Biling sect had 6 main peaks. They were Extreme Ice, Spiritual Seal, Frost Snow, Misty Rain, Jade Saint, and Cloud Shadow. Cloud Shadow Peak was a rising star. Although Heavenly Venerable Cloud Shadow was a Heavenly Venerable, he was still the weakest of the 6. However, since 3 years ago, Cloud Shadow Peak was renamed Lingbao Peak, and Cloud Shadow called himself Heavenly Venerable Lingbao. Lingbao changed 3 times a day. Not only did his disciples become famous for snatching treasures, but they also had more tricks up their sleeve. Heavenly Venerable Lingbao was the first to break through the heaven realm a year ago, and became the first true Heavenly Venerable of the Biling sect. The Biling sect had also changed from the era of Heavenly Venerable Bingju to the era of Heavenly Venerable Lingbao. After 3 years, the Biling sect's strength had increased greatly. Originally, the Biling sect was only the overlord of the Northern Spirit region in name. The real masters were the 3 forces behind the various families in the Northern Spirit region. The 3 hidden families. They were the original Yen family, the Bai family, and the current Qin family. However, the Biling sect now had the momentum of sweeping the entire region. Even the Yen family, the Bai family, and the Qin family seemed to be retreating on the surface. Many disciples of the Biling sect rejoiced. Even some of the ancient Biling sect experts who had broken through the seal were very satisfied. Unknowingly, the entire Biling sect had almost become the first demon sect under the demon sect. The primordial spiritual treasure extraterritorial demon scripture had been developed by Heavenly Venerable Lingbao. As a result, not only did the vast land of the Northern Spirit region fall into the hands of Qin Feng, but even all the sects in this land were controlled by him. It had become the first demon sect paradise. The Kingdom of Dreams had appeared 3 years ago. When it first appeared, it was only receiving the dreams of a portion of the ordinary living beings in the Northern Spirit region, using the power of their dreams to refine it. However, as it leveled up, it was affected by the Lord God space, and turned into a place similar to the world of samsara. At the same time, using the power of the God's realm, Qin Feng began to try to extend it into the middle of the cultivators. Unexpectedly, the various reincarnation trial grounds evolved from the Dream Kingdom caused a lot of commotion among the practitioners. To be able to cultivate in one's dreams was definitely something that one could only dream of. At first, many cultivators were confused and doubtful, but after nearly a year of development, almost all of the sects had been popularized. The Biling sect had their suspicions at first, but they quickly guessed that this was a divine kingdom of some almighty being. It might be some ruins. Furthermore, this dream reincarnation land was beneficial to the cultivation of the sect's disciples. After a period of futile effort, he chose to temporarily put it aside. Over the past 3 years, the Dreamscape Kingdom had been nourished by the dreamscape energy of all living beings and had grown rapidly. It even had the tendency to extend beyond the Northern Spirit region. Qin Feng presided over it for 2 reasons. One was to constantly adjust the simplified version of the reincarnation space, and the other was to stabilize this newly formed special divine kingdom. In addition, it was to prevent others from spying on them. Just as he had expected, such a huge dreamscape kingdom passed peacefully for 3 years, but it finally attracted some greedy gazes. Dream Fate Mountain. This was an exceptionally beautiful mountain peak. Over the past 3 years, the Spirit Sea continent had changed greatly. Many ordinary mountains had experienced the baptism of spiritual energy and became exceptionally beautiful. Dream Fate Mountain was originally an ordinary mountain peak, but after a practitioner occupied it, it became exceptionally famous. There was an additional Dream Tao Palace on the mountain. The palace lord called himself the Dream God and changed the name of the mountain to Dream Fate Mountain. The palace lord of the Dream Tao Palace did not like to call friends and did not open the mountain gates to accept disciples. Nor did she cheat believers to build a temple. She just focused on cultivation. On the mountain path, the morning fog was hazy, but a figure appeared at the foot of the mountain. Dream Fate Mountain. Very few people came to visit. Firstly, the palace lord was cold and arrogant. Secondly, the surrounding families and sects all knew that the palace lord's cultivation was extremely high, but she was not willing to interact with other powers. The mountain fog was hazy. The black-robed youth at the foot of the mountain looked to be around 24 or 25 years old. He had a handsome face and sparkling eyes. His black hair was like a waterfall behind his shoulders, and he had a strange aura. He was extremely fast. With one step, he appeared in front of the Dream Dao Palace. Surrounded by pine trees, there was a small flat bluestone ground, and on top of it was a Dao Palace with pine trees. Dream God Palace Lord, an esteemed guest has arrived. Are you not going to come out and welcome him? A faint figure came out of the black-robed youth's mouth. It seemed to be immersed in the depths of the Dao Palace. The Dao Palace was quiet. It was so quiet that only the sound of the pine trees moving in the wind could be heard. Creak. After a while, the sound of a door opening came from the depths of the Dao Palace. A dreamlike figure walked out of the Holy Ji Palace. She was emitting a ball of white light and looked very strange. Sometimes she looked like an old person, sometimes a child, sometimes a youth, sometimes a man, sometimes a woman. It was hard to tell. Looking at the black-robed youth walking out of the stone ground, she seemed to be slightly stunned. After a while, a faint bitter voice came out. I didn't expect that the owner of the dream realm would be such an earth-shattering figure like you. Have I offended you? An expert from the ancient times. The black-robed youth sized up the dream god. The faint ancient aura couldn't be concealed. He was deep in thought. This place is called Dream Fate Mountain. If I remember correctly, there was an ancient sect called the Dream God Sect. The Dream God Sect's mountain gate is located at Dream Fate Mountain. It's rumored that the Dream God Sect is different from other sections. They specialize in entering dreams and controlling them. Their supreme technique, the 3000 reincarnation dream technique, is a supreme technique for controlling dreams. It's rumored that using this technique, one can even reincarnate and cultivate in dreams. It's a pity that during ancient times, the sect's true technique was coveted by others and was wiped out overnight, causing the sect to disappear. The black-robed youth looked at the Dream God Palace Lord. May I know which generation of Dream God you are? Qin Feng had a smile on his face, but there was a strange look in his eyes. When he sensed that someone was trying to invade the core of the dream realm and steal the power of the dream realm, he had immediately rushed over in pursuit of that source of power. However, the appearance of this dream god had truly surprised him. But it was just a surprise. Even though this dream god was an expert from the ancient times, in his eyes, it was still not enough. At this moment, the dream god was also in a dilemma. She had sensed the appearance of the dream realm a long time ago. The boundless amount of dream force was the best material for the dream god to construct a divine kingdom. However, she had also sensed that the dream realm enveloping the northern spirit region had an owner. However, the owner of the dream realm was obviously not very adept at managing it and had left behind many flaws. She had planned to steal it carefully and wait until she had completely refined the dream realm before engaging in a battle with the dream realm lord. But she hadn't expected that her opponent would discover her actions so quickly and with such a terrifying cultivation base. Just a trace of his aura was enough to make her feel like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Chapter 1254. After some thought, the Dream God Palace Lord said in a low voice, I am the third dream god of the Dream God Sect, Bai Lu. So you're the third dream god. Qin Feng was slightly surprised, but he soon understood. The third-generation dream god of the Dream God Sect, Bai Lu, was a rather famous existence among the ancient experts. He could control dreams and was known as the Eternal Dream God. Qin Feng's strength was more than 10 times that of the dream gods, but when it came to the use of dream force, he was still inferior to the dream god. Bai Lu, are you willing to become this king's follower? This king can give you control over the dream realm. What? Give me control over the dream realm? The dream god was clearly stunned. The dream realm had great potential. It already covered an entire region, and its power was not inferior to that of a typical divine kingdom. In the dream god's eyes, a mere northern spirit region was not the limit of the dream realm. Given the way the dream realm operated, it would definitely be able to dominate an entire region. If anyone could obtain the Dreamscape Kingdom and become its ruler, obtaining the Dreamscape deity seat, they would most likely become the Dreamscape demon god. You don't need to be so shocked. If you become this king's follower, you will discover that this divine kingdom is nothing more than a drop in the ocean to this king. Qin Feng's expression was calm. What? The dream god was truly shocked, but it didn't seem like Su Chun was lying. She was slightly tempted. The importance of a dream realm to someone like her, who cultivated the method power of dreams, went without saying. But if she became this king's follower, she would be under his control. She would lose her freedom. Even so, this hesitation only lingered in her mind for a moment before completely disappearing. Compared to losing her life, losing her freedom wasn't that bad either. As long as the dream realm existed, the dream god would not perish. However, that didn't include meeting such a terrifying almighty like the black-clothed man before him. This god is willing. A wise choice. Qin Feng nodded as he waved his sleeve, causing a streak of divine power to fly out and enter the dream god's forehead. The faint outline of a dragon appeared on the dream god's forehead, but it quickly disappeared. I have never liked to use barbaric methods to control my subordinate god. This symbol is the symbol of all the gods in my pantheon. Although it has been integrated into your body, it will not cause any harm. It will only determine your existence. But one day, if you betray me, you should know the consequences, right? There was a slight chill in Qin Feng's voice. The dream god nodded. She was well aware of the meaning behind this symbol. Once this divine brand entered her body and betrayed her one day, it would become the coordinates that the Lord God would use to lock onto her and attack her. It would become her life-reaping talisman. He wasn't quite used to this, but the dream god was still quite relieved that this future sovereign was quite lax in his rules. At the very least, he wasn't like some of the other sovereigns, who were directly controlling him. From now on, I will temporarily hand over the management of the dream realm to you. You need to be clear about how you will benefit from it. You will have to rely on yourself to ascend to the dream god's position in this era. Of course, if you encounter any enemies that you cannot deal with, you can ask me for help. Qin Feng's voice was calm. Finally, he didn't need to personally oversee the operation of the Dreamscape Divine Kingdom and personally oversee its operations. Yes, Sovereign. The dream god nodded. Right, there are also some taboos. For example, the Qin clan is my bloodline, or my pawns in other realms. The Dream Realm envoys will tell you everything. Qin Feng's gaze landed on the dream god. Don't disappoint me. The hazy divine light around the dream god's body had already receded, revealing an extremely beautiful woman dressed in white. Her appearance was quite ordinary, and if she was thrown into a crowd, she would be forgotten in the next second. This ancient expert's appearance was quite ordinary. The only thing that was out of the ordinary was her eyes. They were hazy and seemed to be constantly changing, as if countless life forms were floating within them. She bowed respectfully to the black-robed man, then her figure flickered as she disappeared into the void and entered the dream realm. The divine system brand that Qin Feng had given her was extraordinary, and it was refined from a strand of the dream realm's quintessence. By relying on this strand of brand, not only did the dream realm not reject her, it even accepted her as if it was welcoming the arrival of a king. She silently entered the central dream god's temple. In the dream shrine, there were many dream demons in the form of envoys waiting for him. On Dream Fate Mountain, Qin Feng smiled slightly when he sensed the dream god enter the dream realm and accept the dream god's temple. With the dream god in control of the dream realm, I don't need to personally guard it anymore. Next. Suddenly, Qin Feng's expression shifted, and he frowned slightly. His figure flickered as he disappeared. In the next moment, his figure appeared in the Master God space. Through the Master God space, his figure quickly appeared beside a huge ancient tree. The primordial lands. Atop the central ancient tree, in front of the heavenly life goddess courtyard, white clouds floated about, and above the sea of clouds was a vast expanse. At a glance, the sea of clouds seemed to stretch across the boundless horizon. This ancient tree was like a world tree that could support the heavens and the earth. Above the tree trunk were several large kingdoms, with many worlds hanging from them. Qin Feng swept his gaze across, and he could see many races. The main race was a race called the Elven race. All sorts of elves were gathered here, and almost every tree trunk and leaf was a large world. This was clearly the work of the heavenly life goddess, and the life forms in these kingdoms were likely believers of the heavenly life goddess. The heavenly life goddess courtyard was on a floating island in the Cloud Kingdom. "Why are you looking for me in such a hurry?" As soon as he landed, Qin Feng saw the heavenly life goddess, Lu Qi, who had a serious expression on her face. "Netherworld Emperor, something big is about to happen in the primordial lands." There was a hint of worry on the heavenly life goddess' beautiful face. Seeing the goddess' expression, Qin Feng's heart sank slightly. What happened? Qin Feng had a rare serious expression on his face. The primordial lands had now become one of his foundations. It was a pillar for him to break through to the overgod realm in the future, and it was also his main backer. His womenfolk's family was also here, and their position was exceptionally important. It's the human ancestors. I've received accurate information that some of the human ancestors have found the coordinates of the primordial lands. The heavenly life goddess was slightly bitter. Human ancestors? Qin Feng's expression changed drastically. Weren't those human ancestors imprisoned by the Eastern Wilderness Great Emperor and turned into fertilizer for the primordial lands? How can there still be human ancestors? Qin Feng had a look of disbelief. The human ancestors of the primordial lands were indeed captured by the Eastern Wilderness and imprisoned in the primordial lands. The heavenly life goddess looked at Qin Feng and sighed slowly. But not all of them were captured by the Eastern Wilderness. Chapter 1255. The fighting strength of those ancient ancestors is extremely tyrannical. Even when the Eastern Wilderness reached the peak of cultivation, it was impossible to catch them all in one fell swoop. Many of them were rescued by some terrifying existences. The life goddess's tone carried a hint of regret. Terrifying beings? Qin Feng was inwardly shocked. To be able to rescue those human ancestors from the hands of a peerless monster like the Eastern Wilderness Emperor, they were probably at least above the level of a Lord God. The life goddess saw Qin Feng's expression and sighed slightly. Just as you guessed, the Eastern Wilderness isn't the only overlord in this area. There are also a few peerless existences who aren't inferior to the Eastern Wilderness watching this area. If those existences hadn't interfered, those human ancestors wouldn't have been able to escape. Qin Feng shook his head. If you don't remove the root of the problem, it will become a disaster. The life goddess's expression was grave. You're right. Those human ancestors were all powerful beings. Ever since they were rescued by those terrifying beings, they became those peerless existences' hired thugs. Now they're scattered across many extraterritorial continents. However, they've never forgotten their hatred for the Eastern Wilderness god system. Since ancient times, they've been relentlessly pursuing the Eastern Wilderness god system. With the support of those existences, they're like rabid dogs. A hint of anger and hatred flashed across the life goddess's eyes. As if realizing that she had lost her composure, she regained her composure after a moment. She looked at Qin Feng. Some time ago, I don't know how they found the coordinates of our primordial land. Now, a few peerless experts from the human ancestor continent have already found their way here. I'm afraid they'll find the divine tree continent soon. The human ancestor continent. Qin Feng's eyes were filled with doubt. The human ancestor continent is an extraterritorial continent where those human ancestors were after leaving the Linghai continent. The foundation there isn't any weaker than the primordial land. After concealing their strength and biding their time, the human ancestor continent is now filled with human ancestors and ushered in the golden age of the human ancestors. A Lord God of the human ancestors was even born there. The life goddess's expression was gloomy. Looks like the situation isn't optimistic? Qin Feng took a deep breath of cold air. You don't have to worry too much. The 6 continents of the primordial land are the territory of our eastern wilderness divine system. Even if the experts from the Renzu continent discover the coordinates of the primordial land, they won't gather an army to attack us. At most, they will send a small team of experts. The life goddess looked at Qin Feng. You're now a Peking realm expert, just one step away from the quasi-emperor realm. You also have the support of the sovereign god space. Ordinary human ancestors, even if 1 or 2 human emperors enter the ancient lands, may not be your match. What I'm most afraid of is that they'll send half-step lord-level existences. The heavenly life goddess looked worried. As far as she knew, some of the ancient ancestral humans from ancient times had yet to wither completely. There were still a few of them left, and almost all of them were half-step lord-level existences. The half-step lord-level existences were searching for opportunities almost madly. The divine tree mainland had recently elevated, and its heaven and earth rule had been perfected. To half-step lords, this was extremely beneficial. This was especially true for half-step lords who cultivated the destruction Tao. If they could personally destroy an extraterritorial continent with perfected heaven and earth rule, the tremendous destructive force of the extraterritorial continent's destruction would be enough to elevate the half-step lords further. Generally speaking, extraterritorial continents with perfected heaven and earth rule had extremely powerful defenses. Basically, the chances of an ordinary half-step lord destroying them were close to 0. However, the primordial land had just completed its transformation, and its power was still increasing. Compared to extraterritorial continents with perfected heaven and earth rule, it was much more fragile. This gave the half-step lords from the destruction Tao an opportunity. They might attract the covetous eyes of the half-step lords from the destruction Tao. I'll deal with whatever comes my way. Qin Feng smirked coldly. He was no pushover. It was fine if the ancestral humans did not come, but if they dared to enter the primordial land, he would show them what he, the emperor of the underworld, could do. Moreover, the divine tree mainland is basically in my hands now. I can totally use this to build a holy altar. A strange look appeared in Qin Feng's eyes. The holy altar was one of the many altars. It was similar to the Creator God's altar and the Origin God's altar. The holy, God in heaven, saint and earth, and Tao. The holy was the saint of gods, the saint of a world. The saints here were not the saints of the Spirit Sea mainland. Instead, they were beings with supreme authority in heaven and earth. They were similar to the few immortal Tao saints in the primeval continent. This was a type of status, a status bestowed by heaven and earth. One could only become a saint if they were recognized by heaven and earth. Once one became a saint, one would be the most powerful being in heaven and earth. They would be the king of a world, the saint of all beings. However, everyone knew that the more powerful the extraterritorial continent's origin, the more powerful the saint it would give birth to. For extremely terrifying continents like the primeval continent, the saints it gave birth to were far more powerful than lord-level existences. They were not inferior to the eternal dominator. Even if a saint were to appear in the primordial land, they would at most be ordinary lords in heaven and earth. However, the holy altar had a special characteristic. For ordinary beings, once they fused with a trace of primordial violet chi born in heaven and earth and became a saint, they would not be able to become a lord. This was because the karma of heaven and earth was like a torrent. Once one became a saint of a world, it would be endless and constantly entangled. The experts who became saints would be greatly affected by this entanglement. Their strength would increase tremendously, and it would be difficult for them to see their path clearly. However, the holy altar could avoid this. Using the holy altar to fuse with the violet chi, one could replace the saints to bear the impact of the laws of heaven and earth. In particular, Qin Feng also had the Lord's space. Ordinary experts might be able to bear the impact for a while, but they would slowly be eroded and become a puppet of heaven and earth. However, with the holy altar and the Lord's space, this impact would not only be useless to Qin Feng, but it would also become a resource for the Lord's space. After coming out from under the central ancestor tree, Qin Feng began to prepare for the construction of the holy altar. He was prepared to obtain the saint of the primordial land in one fell swoop and face the arrival of the human ancestor, the Star River mainland. In a simple month in the Spirit Sea mainland, almost a year had passed in the Star River mainland. In an ancient mountain peak, shrouded in clouds and mist, it was so deep that one could not see one's fingers. In the mountain peak, bits of cold air were like dewdrop. In a stone cave in the center of the mountain peak, it was as warm as spring. The interior was very well decorated, like a woman's boudoir. From time to time, strange sounds would come from the cave, and occasionally, there would be traces of extremely joyful cries. Red waves rolled as two bodies collided fiercely. A man and a woman were deducing the most profound mysteries of the intersection of yin and yang of heaven and earth. The woman's figure was extremely hot. Her skin was as smooth as white jade, and her hair was spread out in a brocade quilt. Her face was extremely beautiful, and at this moment it was even more shocking and charming. Her expression was strange, as if she was sad and happy, angry and angry, helpless and stupefied, as she looked at the cave ceiling. Chapter 1256. This year, the Star River continent had undergone tremendous changes. This was a year of sudden changes. It was also a year that would go down in history. This year, the oceanic race suddenly appeared. As soon as they appeared, several large empires near the sea, including the Karl Empire, the Bauhinia Empire, and the Fenghua Empire, were destroyed by the Sea Race Empire in just a few months. The experts of the oceanic species even slaughtered the cities, crazily plundering resources. Hundreds of millions of refugees flocked to the surrounding countries. The entire continent was in chaos. Although the West Chu Empire and the Great Qin Empire were located in the hinterlands, they were also greatly affected. Everyone was in a state of panic, and many forces took the opportunity to take advantage of the situation. The Sea Race Empire's vanguard was attacking the West Chu Empire and some of the smaller cities around the Great Qin Empire. 3 months ago, with the West Chu Empire and the Great Qin Empire as the leaders, as well as the royal families of the surrounding countries, they had already begun to discuss an alliance to resist the Sea Race. Many sects and aristocratic families also began to mobilize. Close to the southwest of the sea, this place was extremely close to the Bauhinia Empire where the Sea Race had landed. The Merfolk Empire's advance wasn't slow. Fortunately, the West Chu Empire and the Great Qin Empire were both superpowers of the Star River continent. Their national strength was formidable, and in addition to the fact that they had taken precautions, the Sea Race's advance was finally slowed down. However, the situation was still not optimistic. The 12 vanguards of the Sea Clan were peak monarch rank experts, and they had heaven rank experts from the various clans under them. There were tens of millions of Sea Clan troops, and each vanguard was not weaker than a large empire. Not to mention, there were still 4 terrifying Sea Tribe commanders behind him. Above the Sea Clan's marshal, there were 2 Sea Kings on the left and right. It was even rumored that they had broken through the bottleneck of the monarch tier and advanced to the deity tier, the Sea Emperor. In the Xinghe continent, deities had always been a legend. Although there had always been legends of several powerhouses breaking through to the god realm in the Star River continent, no one had ever been able to prove it. Wanxing Peak. This was the territory of the Myriad Stars sect. A few months ago, a peerless almighty had come to the sect and killed the Myriad Stars sect's monarch realm expert, ancestor Myriad Stars, in front of all the disciples of the Myriad Stars sect, as well as the Myriad Stars sect's young master, Myriad Stars C, who had just broken through to the heaven realm. The remaining disciples and elders of the Myriad Stars sect were helpless. He could only choose to surrender. The entire Myriad Stars sect had a new master. This matter could be said to have shocked the entire West Chu Empire. However, unexpectedly, this existence did not enslave the 10,000 Stars sect. Instead, he supported another true disciple of the 10,000 Stars sect to become the sect leader. That true disciple was not a nobody in the West Chu Empire. Instead, it was Feng Yi, the former number 1 beauty of the Myriad Star sect, and even the West Chu Empire. Feng Yi was the most beautiful and was even the most exceptional genius of the ancient Feng family. It could be said that her name was known everywhere and she had countless pursuers. However, she chose Wang Xuanyi, who was almost unknown at that time, and eloped with him. It could be said that many people's jaws dropped. At that time, many people felt pity and jealousy. In a fit of anger, the Feng family announced that he was expelled from the family. It had been unknown for many years, but who would have thought that once it appeared, it would be earth-shattering? The most surprising thing was that Feng Yi, who was known as the number 1 beauty of the Star River continent, had already broken through the heaven stage and became a heaven stage powerhouse. Of course, although a heaven-rank powerhouse was very important, it was not enough to make those big forces fear him. The most frightening thing was that behind her, a peerless powerhouse who could kill a monarch-rank existence. As the sect leader's peak of the 10,000 Stars sect, the 10,000 Stars peak was not an ordinary spiritual and majestic mountain. Beside the cliff, on a star stone, this was the cultivation place of the 10,000 Stars sect's sect leader. That star stone was said to be carved from the star core left behind after the disintegration of a huge star. It gathered the spirituality of millions of mountains and rivers, and could even receive the power of the 33 heavenly star river. It was a cultivation treasure. At this moment, a handsome man in white was lazily sitting cross-legged on the star stone mountain. Clouds were scattered around him. He was holding a treasured book in his hand and reading it with great interest. 10,000 Stars Crossing Art. This was the core inheritance treasure book of the 10,000 Stars sect. The young man's body was shining with starlight, and the power of millions of stars gathered on the surface of his body. It was like countless stars were changing, and the strange operation faintly reflected a vast nebula in the sky. The inheritance of the 10,000 Stars sect is really something. Its understanding of the evolution of stars is not inferior to the various true inheritances of the Xingqian school. It is very beneficial to the understanding of the rules of stars. Wang Xian smiled. With this understanding, he could feel that the power of the rules of stars in the Master God space was becoming more and more perfect. Just this little bit of understanding was worth a return ticket. He released a little bit of aura from his body. Suddenly, he had surpassed the monarch rank, and was only half a step away from the mysterious god rank. In the past 6 months he went out once, and when he came back, he was at the peak of the monarch rank. Putting down his hand, Wang Xian moved his hand, and a ray of starlight rushed out. After the 5th evolution, the black water spirit-eating flower had completely evolved. It turned into a huge ancient vine that seemed to be able to fly, like a divine dragon. If Wang Xian wanted, this ancient vine could spread for thousands of miles and take root in the ground in an instant. A monarch rank expert had completely comprehended the profound of constellation, and could control a part of the power of stars. It could be said that he was preparing to become a true god of the galaxy. But compared to the legends, there are still fewer people who have really advanced to the god rank. Wang Xian murmured. The cultivation system here was very interesting. The ultimate evolution of the star martial soul was the form of a true god of the galaxy, which could control the power of the endless stars outside the 33 heavens. Here, the cultivator and the martial soul would become one, and they would cultivate the divine body together. Finally, they would transcend the restrictions of the rules of the galaxy continent, and become a great existence that could travel the stars. Therefore, the sixth soul ring did not need an ordinary soul ring. Instead, it was a star ring that was born from some stars in the endless stars. In Wang Xian's impression, the true god of the galaxy was also a kind of true god. As for the star ring, it should be equivalent to a star that gave birth to a star god. In the 33 heavens, in the endless stars, there were very few ancient stars that could give birth to a star god. Finding a star that gave birth to a star ring in the endless stars was more difficult than finding a needle in a haystack. Only the top sons of Providence in the world would have such luck. Of course, in addition to this, there was another way to become a true god of the galaxy, and that was to give birth to a star god. Using one's own natal star to give birth to a star god. However, this method was as difficult as the previous one. After Wang Xian had advanced to the peak of the monarch rank, he had thought of using the first method to find a star that gave birth to a star god. However, even if he used the power of the master god space to calculate, there was no result. However, he might be able to use the second method. Originally, I wanted to get some benefits and show off my driving skills. However, it was too tight and I couldn't break the rules. I could only forget about it. If there was a chance in the future, I would do something else. Chapter 1257. The reason why he said he could try the second method. It was because Qin Feng had the analysis of the king god space. Wang Xian had already found a way to nurture the star god position in his body. It was similar to the spirit sea continent. As long as he comprehended one of the monarch-level saint domains to perfection and formed a godhead, he would naturally be able to receive the support of the endless star river. He would be able to achieve divine soul unity and fuse it with his martial soul to become a star god. Nurturing a star god was not only a physical task, but also a mental one. Wang Xian sat on the star rock. On one hand, he circulated his soul power to absorb the power of the stars in the sky to polish his star monarch body. On the other hand, he borrowed the power of the king god space to deduce the mysteries of the star god. He wanted to comprehend the power of the star god as soon as possible. Rustle, rustle. At this moment, faint footsteps could be heard. Along with the footsteps, there was also the sound of messy clothes fluttering in the wind. Wang Xian opened his eyes. His nose moved slightly as he smelled the familiar body fragrance. You're here?" Wang Xian's lips curled into a mischievous smile. "Don't call me Yi." Behind him, the beautiful woman in white walked out from the clouds. Her beautiful face flashed with a strange blush. She was embarrassed and had a strange feeling. Wang Xian's figure flashed. In the next moment, he appeared beside the beautiful woman in white. He grabbed the beautiful woman's extremely elastic waist. The beautiful woman in white wanted to struggle subconsciously, but she couldn't escape from the entanglement of his hands. Xian, the beautiful woman in white's face was dignified and noble with a trace of pleading. "All right, I won't tease you anymore." Seeing that Feng Yi still couldn't change her identity, Wang Xian shook his head. Half a year ago, He took the opportunity of the fire poison to take down the beautiful woman in one fell swoop. Moreover, during this half a year, the beautiful woman in white was still a bit shy. However, he had to admit that this beautiful woman in white was indeed a gift from the heavens. Even if he had a strong mind and outstanding willpower, he still couldn't help but want to indulge in the gentleness of the beautiful woman in white. Did the West Chu Empire send people again? Wang Xian's expression turned serious. Yes. The beautiful woman in white glanced at the handsome young man standing at the edge of the cliff. His face was like jade. He was untainted by even a speck of dust, and there was a unique temperament about him. He was so otherworldly and exceptional. It was likely that such a man could not be found in the Star River continent for tens of thousands of years. A complicated expression flashed across her beautiful and holy face. There were emotions, awkwardness, and helplessness. Half a year ago, her fire poison had flared up. If not for that, she might have lost her life to the backlash half a year ago. She had always told herself that she had no choice. However, she sighed inwardly. She had once thought of sneaking away, but every time she would be discovered by the white-clothed youth, who would take the opportunity to ruthlessly punish her. After 3 or 4 times, she didn't know when, but the image of this handsome young man in white had been deeply engraved in her heart. Forget it. Since this enemy is so obsessed with me, after this battle, I will simply withdraw from the position of sect leader of myriad stars and be the woman behind him in peace. Thinking of this, the beautiful woman in white's beautiful and holy face blushed a little. She had to admit that when she thought of that enemy, she couldn't help but feel a burst of warmth in her heart. Wang Xian saw the inexplicable blush on the beautiful woman in white's face and his expression changed. With a suspicious expression, he took a few steps forward and hugged the beautiful woman in white. Lowering his head, he stuck to the beautiful woman in white's full breasts as if he was listening attentively. "What are you thinking about?" "Nothing?" The beautiful woman in white's heartbeat sped up. She pushed away the young man in white's head and turned her body sideways. The blush on her face couldn't be concealed. Seeing Wang Xian's suspicious gaze and wanting to come closer, she immediately changed the topic. "You guessed right. The Emperor of the West Chu Empire has sent someone again, and it's a country guardian expert." Speaking of the country guardian expert, Feng Yi's beautiful face became a little more serious. To be able to become a country guardian expert of a superpower like the West Chu Empire, there was no doubt that he was a monarch-level expert. "Xian, do you want to consider going to meet him? They just want to use me as a high-level fighter for them. There's nothing to meet." Wang Xian shook his head. He now had to concentrate on comprehending the mysteries of the galaxy. How could he have the time to be a fighter? Feng Yi frowned and said with a serious expression, "Xian, if the West Chu Empire is destroyed, the sea race won't let our Thousand Stars sect go. I'm afraid you don't understand your husband's strength. It's just a sea race. The only thing to worry about is the Sea Emperor, who is rumored to have reached the god level." Wang Xian's expression was indifferent. Seeing Feng Yi still frowning, he couldn't help but step forward and embrace her slender waist. "Don't worry, I don't care about anything else. Even if the entire continent is occupied by the sea race, I don't care. The only thing I care about is you. As long as I can ensure your safety, it doesn't matter if the entire continent falls." Hearing those domineering words, the beautiful woman in white was a little shy, but her heart was filled with sweetness. Wang Xian's eyes were smiling. "Of course, if you like, when I reach the god level, I can create another continent for you." Reach the god level? The beautiful woman in white was shocked. She couldn't care less about her shyness as she stared blankly at Wang Xian. The god level, that was a legendary realm. Since ancient times, there had only been a handful of legendary existences who had broken through to the deity level. Wang Xian actually said he was going to reach the god level? The beautiful woman in white almost couldn't believe her ears. I know you've always wanted to return to the Feng family in a dignified manner one day. I'll help you achieve your wish. I'll have that group of people carry a palanquin and invite you back. The beautiful woman in white didn't know when she left the cliff. She only remembered that she was dizzy when she returned to the Thousand Stars Palace and met with the guardian of the West Chu Empire. She didn't even remember how she sent that guardian away. After the West Chu Empire's imperial family received the news of the mysterious existence of the Thousand Stars sect's rejection, all the experts secretly gritted their teeth. Many sects and families' experts even clamored to charge to the Thousand Stars Peak and destroy the Thousand Stars sect. In the end, it was the West Chu Empire's overlord who stopped everyone. For the West Chu Empire and the Great Qin Empire, their main enemy was still the Sea Tribe. Going against the mysterious existence of the Thousand Stars sect at this time wasn't good for the alliance. If the other party ran away and joined the Sea Tribe, the West Chu Empire would be the unlucky one. Many sects experts were helpless. They could only wait until the Sea Tribe retreated and settle the score with the Thousand Stars sect. In the primordial lands, after half a month of preparation, the preparations for the sacred altar had been completed. Qin Feng had reached a critical period for the primordial lands. If he could become a god in the primordial lands, the entire primordial lands would be in his pocket. Chapter 1258. In the Underworld of the Immemorial Land. The Underworld was no longer as barren as it was when it first opened. Instead, it was unusually prosperous and lively. In the Underworld, many of the spiritual residences already had owners. They were either the Ghost King or the Ghost God, protecting a region. Currently, the White Bone Wasteland was filled with countless underworld beasts. Groups of underworld beasts roared in the White Bone Wasteland, occasionally fighting with zombies and malicious ghosts. It was filled with endless danger. Generally speaking, only the spiritual residences were temporarily safe places. However, the spiritual residences were not necessarily safe. If they were unlucky and encountered a powerful beast king or a true spirit of the underworld, the spiritual domain would be razed and the spiritual residences destroyed. Only the temples and the spiritual domain covered by the temples were safe places to reside. The temples were where the dignity of the underworld god was and contained the power of the underworld emperor. No matter how powerful a true spirit was, it would not dare to attack the spiritual domain of the temples and slap the underworld emperor's face. Now in the underworld emperor's dignity was deeply rooted in everyone's hearts. Under the underworld emperor were the three palace kings. They were King Qingguang, King Chujiang, and King Songdi. Under the three palace kings were a group of upper-class underworld gods. The upper-class underworld gods were like officials of the border. They formed the underworld gods' divine domain with their temples, built ghost cities in the underworld, and established their own residences. Below them were the middle-class underworld gods of the various residences. The general constitution of the underworld had been established and perfected. The system of seventh-class underworld officials was established. Low-class underworld gods could become seventh-class underworld officials. Seventh-class underworld officials were the lowest rank in the underworld. They were usually generals and soul reapers. Middle-class underworld gods could supplement sixth-class to fourth-class underworld officials, including civil and military magistrate, deputy prefect, editor, and so on. High-class underworld gods could supplement third-class to first-class underworld officials, including the lord of a ghost city, or the lord of a temple. They could become high-ranking officials. Ever since the system was established, the chaos of the upper-class underworld gods occupying the mountains in the underworld was gradually sorted out. Each of them had their own duties, and rewards and punishments were orderly. In addition, the 18 layers of hell, where evil spirits were punished, had been born. The underworld was growing stronger by the day. The secret of the underworld was also gradually revealed, becoming a secret of the Divine Tree continent. At the foot of Een Mountain. This was the most crucial place in the entire underworld. It was the largest city in the underworld, Een Mountain City. Far away, at the foot of the Een Mountain, many evil spirits could see a huge city that looked like a huge object crossing the Yellow Spring River. At the foot of the eternal Een Mountain, on both sides of the Yellow Spring River, the place was bustling with noise and excitement. Countless underworld divine auras gathered. Some powerful ghost kings swaggered in and out of the city to buy things they needed for cultivation. At the city gates, platoons of armored Een soldiers came and went like the wind. Many evil spirits obediently accepted the inspection at the entrance and entered Een Mountain City. Many people looked at the Yellow Springs River cautiously. The Yellow Springs River could be said to be dangerous. Even the most ferocious of ghosts would be destroyed if they were swept into the Een wind. Yi Ding wore a black official's robe, and his peerlessly handsome face carried a trace of dignity that was difficult to ignore. A few high-level nether gods stood by his side. At this moment, Yi Ding's strength seemed to have already broken through the 13th level and was not too far away from the 15th level. During the 3 years in the immemorial land, his strength did not seem to have dropped at all. He scanned the entire Een Mountain City, and a smile flashed across his face. He could feel the vitality of this huge city. Now, many cities in the underworld were rising. A group of high-level nether gods oversaw a region and vigorously developed it. They used the power of reincarnation to bring all living beings into the underworld. However, in terms of prosperity, none of them could compare to Een Mountain City that he was in charge of. No, perhaps His Highness King Chujiang's Chujiang City and King Song's Kingsong City might not be inferior to Een Mountain City. His smile faded slightly. In the underworld, everyone knew that the more ghosts one controlled, the more underworld providence one would obtain, and the faster one's cultivation would be. Under the Nether King, no high-level nether god was not wholeheartedly managing their own city. This was closely related to the advancement of one's godly position. No one was willing to slack off. Unfortunately, it'll be difficult to advance in a short time. Yi Ding could feel that the Een Mountain nether god's godly position in his body had reached the peak of the 4th grade godly position. It would take some time to break through to the 3rd grade godly position. He was now a 1st grade nether official, the Een Mountain City Lord, and a 4th grade godly position. However, for all high-level nether gods, the 3rd grade godly position was their goal. Only the 3rd grade godly position was the true godly position, However, the immemorial land had just been unified. The land was vast and the population was sparse. There were still fewer living beings. Even though the 9 underworld tribe in the immemorial land strongly encouraged the population to reproduce, it was still insufficient in a short time. Unless, Yi Ding's eyes flashed with a strange light. At this moment, he was not the only one who thought so. Most of the 1st grade officials had the same thought. Even among the 3 Hall Kings, there were some who were eager to take action. They hoped that the Nether Emperor would advance further. As far as Yi Ding knew, even among the 3 Hall Kings, only one of them had attained the 3rd grade godly position. There were too many monks and too little meat. Een Mountain City Lord, you are the junior brother of the Nether Emperor. The 2 of you are the closest. Why don't you go and talk to the Nether Emperor? Those 5 continents are meat in our mouth. We can't not eat them. A 2nd grade nether official said after careful consideration. He was also a high-level nether god. He was the supervisor of Een Mountain City's inspection department. Yes, the 6 continents of the immemorial land have been complete since ancient times. The Lingyan continent, Earthly Rock continent, Tianmiao continent, Radiance continent, and Gloom continent have been one since ancient times. If the Nether Emperor agrees, we are willing to take the lead. The one who spoke was a dark-faced nether official in a blue robe. He was the supervisor of the patrol mansion. He controlled the 800,000 Een soldiers of Een Mountain City. You don't have to worry about this matter. The Nether Emperor has his own plans. Yi Ding smiled bitterly. This was not the first time this group of Nether gods came to show their determination. The size of the territory was related to the vital interests of many Nether gods. As the immemorial land was divided, many Nether gods urgently needed a new destiny. Once the war machine for expansion was started, it was difficult to stop. It was not just these two Nether gods. Their words represented the thoughts of most Nether gods. Buzz, buzz. At this moment, Yi Ding and the other Nether gods under his command were moved. They looked toward the Een mountain range. At this moment, almost all the powerful Nether gods in the underworld sensed something. An extremely majestic aura appeared above the Een mountain range. Heavenly music drifted in the air, thousands of flowers bloomed, and fragrance filled the air. An auspicious aura started from the Een mountain range and spread throughout the underworld. It even rushed out of the underworld and spread to the entire immemorial land. It evolved into a boundless and mysterious great Tao on the vast land. For a time, countless living beings in the primeval lands obtained its fortune, and their intelligence rose greatly. Moreover, there were even countless plants and spirit beasts that obtained its intelligence and took human form. Chapter 1259. The Birth of a Supreme Saint, Supreme God, and Supreme Existence in the Immemorial Land? Many underworld gods narrowed their eyes. According to rumors, only the birth of such an extraordinary existence would cause such a huge phenomenon. When the auspicious signs appeared, an incomparably huge pressure that surpassed all living things pressed down on the entire immemorial land. All living things, including quasi-deity level existences, were forced to acknowledge allegiance to the ground and kowtowed in the direction of the Een mountain with extreme devotion. In the underworld Emperor Immortal Palace above the Een mountain, Qin Feng opened his eyes. His divine sense moved slightly, and the entire immemorial land seemed to change along with his divine sense. With a single thought, all living beings were under his control. He naturally comprehended the creation of heaven and earth and the supreme principle of the universe. Is this the power of divinity? A world in the palm of one's hand? A trace of a smile flashed across Qin Feng's face. He raised his head and seemed to see a huge altar in the void endlessly withstanding waves of terrifying impact for him. The torrent seemed to originate from the deepest part of heaven and earth and was endless. The power was incomparably chaotic, and seemed to contain the mysteries of heaven. The huge altar could only block a part of it. The other part flowed into a huge kingdom and was absorbed by that unbelievably huge kingdom, turning into a pure stream that merged into his body. It turned into an inconceivable and marvelous power that nourished his divine body. Crack! In his ears, it was as if a certain barrier was naturally shattered by this torrent, and he instantly completed the accumulation above the king realm. The divinity in his body turned into 12 balls, and in the next moment, they suddenly sank into the depths of the semi-illusory origin divine spark, turning into a huge divine spark that was like the sun. The marvelous power surged out. It was abnormally stable and didn't show the slightest sign of weakness. The fourth stage of the heaven realm, the strong heaven realm, which is the quasi-emperor realm. The quasi-emperor realm is already half a step beyond the scope of laws and can control a part of the laws of water. Qin Feng closed his eyes slightly and sensed. He felt an extremely huge power changing in his body. His divine power was even more majestic and vast. It seemed that a trace of aura could kill a king realm expert. Moreover, in this world, I am a divine being who controls the laws of heaven and earth. I am like a peerless sovereign god. Anyone who enters here will be tantamount to entering my sovereign god kingdom, and they will die without a doubt. Qin Feng closed his eyes and channeled the power of the entire heaven and earth into his spiritual will. His spiritual will seemed to have transcended the outer space and entered an unimaginable level. He saw his Lord God's space, which was hidden in the endless space-time dimensions. He saw the other 5 continents not far from the immemorial land. The fiery red spirit flames continent, earth yellow rocky continent, the light blue heavenly meow continent, the pure white radiance continent, the dark and obscure dark continent. At the same time, Huang Xiaolong also sensed 5 extraordinary Godforce auras. They belonged to the 5 true God guardians of the 5 continents. Using his powerful divine thought, Qin Feng even saw the divine kingdoms of the 5 guardian gods. In the sky above the immemorial land, he saw a divine kingdom in the clouds above a giant tree. It was an extremely huge divine kingdom, and the aura it exuded was far beyond that of an ordinary divine kingdom. It already possessed a trace of transcendental aura that transcended the temperature of space-time. It was a sovereign kingdom that was currently transforming. The sovereign kingdom of the goddess of life, Lu Qi. At this moment, within the sovereign kingdom of the life sovereign, the newly promoted half-step sovereign of life, Lu Qi, suddenly opened her eyes. Her gaze followed the direction of the endless space-time and looked at the immemorial land beneath her feet. Just now, she had clearly sensed an extremely majestic power silently brushing past the sovereign kingdom of the life sovereign. If not for the fact that her life sovereign divine spark was currently transforming into a sovereign divine spark and the God force within her body had greatly increased, she definitely would not have sensed that extremely majestic power. Looks like it's that 9th underworld king's doing again. Has his strength increased again? A hint of envy flashed across the face of the sovereign god of life, who was currently transforming. Although the other party's strength was currently inferior to hers, the resources he had at his disposal were something even she envied, especially his ability to earn resources. It was admirable. A very weak feeling. Scanning the sovereign god of life with his spiritual will, Qin Feng sensed that if he used the power of the immemorial land, he would be able to easily injure this woman. Extending his spiritual will, he extended it to the periphery of the immemorial land and carefully sensed it. Suddenly, Qin Feng's expression changed. Not far from the immemorial land, in the immemorial land's endless void that was only half a month's time away, a small team consisting of only a few hundred beings was making their way over. Although there were only a few hundred of them, each of them exuded an unusually powerful aura. These people had gigantic physiques, as if they were void fiend gods that traversed the depths of the endless void. Their true bodies were powerful, easily reaching hundreds of feet. The terrifying chaos chi in the void could not harm these beings. This was especially true for the 2 giants in the lead. One of them had a true body that exceeded 10,000 feet. The other was even more terrifying, with a true body that was close to 30,000 feet. Ancestor Spirit Extermination, that's one of the divine tree continents in the immemorial land. At that moment, the giant on the side suddenly spoke. His voice boomed like thunder in the endless void. This was an extremely powerful being. The aura he exuded far surpassed king level, and was already at quasi-emperor level. As for the being whom he respectfully addressed as Ancestor Spirit Extermination, his aura had reached the peak of quasi-emperor level. His aura did not pale in comparison to a half-step lord like the Sovereign of Life. Behind them, many of the giants looked at the 2 existences with great respect. Although the human ancestor land was vast and had many powerhouses, however, there were only a handful of primogenitors like Ancestor Spirit Extermination. He was the true first-generation primogenitor of the human ancestor tribe. Meanwhile, Ancestor Spirit Extermination was one of the few first-generation primogenitors left in the human ancestor land. He was also a ferocious and renowned supreme being. Many extraterritorial continents had perished in his hands. The immemorial land. Ancestor Spirit Extermination's expression was unreadable, but there was a ferocious glint in his eyes. To all the human ancestors, this place was a place of humiliation. There was no telling how many powerhouses of the human ancestor tribe had died here. Seeing Ancestor Spirit Extermination's expression, the human ancestor powerhouse beside him immediately laughed. According to the information from that goddess, the immemorial land's heaven and earth maxim has been perfected. However, it's at its weakest now. As long as we destroy this continent and obtain the feedback of the continent's destructive power, Lord Primogenitor will be able to achieve great success in one fell swoop and advance to become the second Supreme Lord of the human ancestor land. He bowed respectfully. Your subordinate, Lei Kuei, congratulates Lord Primogenitor for achieving great success and advancing to the path of destruction Lord's position. Ancestor Spirit Extermination nodded. He could not hide his smugness at the same time. After waiting for countless eras, there was finally hope today. Chapter 1260. They've really sent half-step lords? A sneer flickered in Qin Feng's divine telekinesis. A hint of relief flashed through his eyes. If he had not chosen to perform unification and become a divine venerate, he might not have been able to do anything to these powerhouses from the ancestral continent in a one-on-one battle. If that had happened, he might have been able to repel them with his creator space, but he might have had to pay a heavy price. However, since I've become a divine venerate, there's no need for you to leave now that you're here. Qin Feng's eyes were icy cold. As the group of ancestral humans approached the space and time enveloped by the primordial land's crystal wall system, he smirked coldly. An extremely mysterious brilliance appeared behind his head, faintly transforming into a gigantic, crystalline, translucent wheel of light. The gigantic wheel of light covered tens of thousands of worlds. Countless lives were being created and destroyed within it. It was the heavenly Tao wheel manifested by the primordial land's heaven and earth rule. It represented the extent of the divine venerate's control over heaven and earth. Subsequently, an extremely majestic suction force was born from the crystal wall system. Space-time power gushed out like a tidal wave. Under the leadership of Ancestor Spirit Extermination and Human Emperor Lei Kuei, the ancestral humans were rapidly approaching the gigantic extraterritorial continent manifested by the primordial land. Oh no! Ancestor Spirit Extermination's tall figure was surrounded by boundless divine might. At that moment, his eyes were fixed in front of him. Shock flickered on his ancient face. Heavenly Tao, fear of destruction of all worlds. As the group of ancestral humans watched in bewilderment, a layer of grayish-black majestic divine power erupted around him like a meteor. It blasted forward with a loud bang. Subsequently, layers of invisible energy suddenly appeared in front of the extremely bright primordial land. It swept over like a tidal wave. Oh no, it's the heavenly Tao space-time power. The primordial land has given birth to a heavenly Tao saint. Lei Kuei's expression changed. Almost without hesitation, he turned into a bolt of lightning and tore through space-time rapidly, fleeing madly. Intense rage flashed across his face as he fled. That person from before had not mentioned that a heavenly Tao saint had been born in the primordial land. A heaven and earth that had given birth to a heavenly Tao saint and one that had not were two completely different things. Could this be a trap? Lei Kuei's fleeing light became more rapid. The heavenly Tao space-time energy surged out of the crystal wall like a torrent. Spirit Extermination Primogenitor's divine power of destruction hit the torrent and stirred up a huge wave. Part of the time and space power of the heavenly way was shattered by the terrifying divine power of destruction, but most of it turned into a huge wave that drowned the human ancestors' troops. This included Lei Kuei, who was trying his best to escape. No, many human ancestor experts did not even have the time to roar in anger before they were suddenly drowned in the torrent of heavenly Tao spacetime. Damn it! Demi-immortal laws, chaos, heaven, annihilation. Within the heavenly Tao's spacetime torrent, a giant human ancestor that was 3,000 feet tall struggled with all his might. A destructive force appeared around him, turning into a pitch-black divine axe. He swung his axe. A terrifying fluctuation that seemed to split the heavens and earth appeared under the axe, and a crack appeared in the space-time power of the heavenly Tao. With a flash, primogenitor spirit extermination appeared beside Lei Kuei. He grabbed the struggling human ancestor and flew out of the spacetime crack. In the next moment, he turned into a beam of black light and rapidly tore through space, flying out of the range of the primeval land's crystal wall. Did a big fish slip away? Qin Feng opened his eyes, a gloomy light flashing through them. However, seeing the essence energy left behind by the heavenly Tao's spacetime power after the several hundred human ancestors were torn apart, Qin Feng smiled. These several hundred human ancestors all contained a portion of the forefather continent's power. After the primeval land devoured them, it would be quite beneficial. It's just a pity about those two big fish. However, as long as they appear within the range of this crystal wall's spacetime, they'll be caught sooner or later. Qin Feng thought to himself. Outside the crystal wall, the massive human ancestors were swept back. The moment they entered the crystal wall, their remnant bodies transformed into extremely dense essence energy that was absorbed by the crystal wall and fed back to the primeval land. What remained were the souls of the several hundred human ancestors, each of them containing a rich brand of the forefather continent. The will of the heavenly Tao in the crystal wall analyzed and absorbed it. A portion of the forefather continent's traces would become nutrients for the primeval land. At the same time, the coordinates of the forefather continent would be grasped by Qin Feng, a heavenly Tao saint. In the future, it would become a target for hunting in the over-God space. In the depths of the endless void that had remained motionless since ancient times, two streaks of flowing light appeared, revealing two frighteningly huge figures. The two ancient human ancestors had gloomy expressions, their eyes flashing with rage. These two were none other than primogenitor spirit extermination and human sovereign Lei Kuei, who had just escaped. The two of them looked miserable. Their originally majestic and terrifying thousand-zhang god bodies had withered. They were as thin as a match. Their hair had already grown white behind their shoulders. Their pitch-black hair was now snow-white, and their eye sockets were sunken. The two had been struck by the heavenly Tao's spacetime power, causing spacetime to accelerate. It was unknown how much of their essence energy had been consumed in the heavenly Tao's spacetime torrent. If primogenitor spirit extermination had not used life extermination to forcefully break through the heavenly Tao's spacetime torrent, they would have been reduced to two sets of white bones. The two human ancestors had not only failed to obtain any benefits, but their vitality had also been greatly damaged. The rich void chaos Yuan Qi was absorbed by the two coiled figures, and the withered bodies of the two human ancestors slowly began to fill up. Their auras gradually recovered, but their white hair would not be restored in a short period of time. Lord Primogenitor, what should we do next? That person might have already betrayed us. Should we? Human sovereign Lei Kuei's eyes flashed with brutality, and he made a throat-slitting gesture. He had suffered such serious injuries this time, and it would take at least 1,000 years for him to recover. Someone had to pay for such a huge loss. Primogenitor spirit extermination opened his eyes, and a gloomy light flashed in his eyes. Tian Miao wouldn't have the guts to lie to us. After all, we still have something on her. If the great emperor of the eastern wilderness finds out that she colluded with the enemy, she knows what will happen to her. She wouldn't dare to offend us. Then what should we do? Are we just going to look at the Archean land this time? Human sovereign Lei Kuei's eyes flashed with unwillingness. He looked in the direction of the Archean land, and his eyes were filled with greed and anger. A continent with heaven and earth laws that had just been perfected was extremely valuable, even in the eyes of the sovereigns. If they could destroy this continent and obtain its origin, they would have a chance to become a sovereign. Primogenitor Spirit Extermination pondered for a moment. Let's go back. Actually, it's not like we didn't gain anything this time. At least we've figured out a part of the Archean land's situation. When we return and report to the Great Earth God, I believe the Great Earth God won't leave this fat piece of meat untouched. Human Sovereign Lei Kuei nodded fiercely and gritted his teeth. All right, let's go back and report to the Great Earth Master God immediately. With the power of the Great Earth Master God and the other supreme existences, even with the divine protection, this extraterritorial continent will still be ours in the end. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.